Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Yap of Us, episode 2. Today we are discussing The Last of Us, season 2, episode 1. A little confusing, I know. This is the premiere of the HBO show, and I feel like people were generally pretty happy. So before we get in, I want to say, everyone, thumbs up, thumbs down, thumb to the side. All right. Jacob's got the 2 thumbs up. I like it. So that should be a lot of fun. As per usual, I am Michael, the Zoo Boy. We have Austin. Thank you.
What up?
We have Tyler, Dr. Forgon. We have the other Tyler, Team Max Swag.
What up?
And we got Jacob, Star Wars Collective.
Endure and survive.
Hell yeah. So already got a bunch of people in chat. Got Phil, Commander Cook, Star Wars Collective, Dante Displays, Phil again, Jonah, 100%. Love all the backstory.
Absolutely.
That is factually incorrect. I did not say this statement.
Was that you, boy?
I'm going to say that's Will Vaughn. That is a factually incorrect statement. That is fake news. Tangy, Jonah again, and Phil. We will talk about that for sure, Phil. So what I decided to do going forward is I'm going to structure this scene by scene. So we have, on my notes, took notes, got 11 scenes. So we're definitely going to talk about each scene. I don't have something to say about every scene, but, there's 5 of us. So I'm sure we all got something to say. We got a question from Justin, I assume. Okay. Yes, we will definitely talk about that. That is definitely something that I could see how, all of us being game people who've played the game, that could bother some people. So definitely get into that. And all right, Kenobi Jabroni, but I will warn people, this will be a spoiler-heavy show for the show. We will not spoil the games, so you don't have to worry about that, but we will spoil the show. So if you think you might want to watch the show at some point, I might steer clear, but I'll leave it up to you guys.
It's a perfect time to start watching. Season 1 is ready and
Very
available.
true.
Yeah. Just hop right on in.
Yeah, there's 7 episodes this season, so it's not like a huge commitment either. It's not like you got to watch and stay for 10. So get into it. Watch The Last of Us.
Mm-hmm. I've already seen people like Wilbon saying that they want to catch up. They're going to catch up in the next week or two, and then watch the season 2, the rest of it as it airs, because this is a show that I feel, maybe you guys agree, it's way bigger than I thought it would have been. Going when I heard that Last of Us was being adapted into a show. HBO has almost made this their flagship show, which is really cool. I didn't expect it to get so much love. And obviously, as a huge fan, I'm all for it. But it's, I see people talking about it who are nowhere near gamers, It has, in my opinion, elevated itself from game adaptation to just a great show that,
right.
people talk about around the water cooler at work or something like that. So, very, very happy to see. But if you guys are ready, we'll just get into the episode.
Let's do it.
So the first thing is this episode is called Future Days. It is directed and written by Craig Mazin, showrunner. And the title of the episode is important for people who have played the game. We know that that is a song by Pearl Jam that means a lot thematically, means a lot to the characters, and means a lot to Neil Druckmann, the creator of the game and writer on the show. So having that be in the show was something that I know for myself and many other fans was pretty important. The problem is the game takes place in 2013 initially. Then 20 years later will be 2033. The show moves it back 10 years. The show has it take place in 2003. 20 years later would be 2023. The song was released in 2013. So unless Eddie Vedder decided to keep making songs into the apocalypse, doesn't really make sense. However, as a fan, I don't personally give a shit. So I don't know if you guys agree, but I watched the Last of Us podcast. Highly recommend. And Craig and Neil said that they came to the same conclusion that they don't give a shit. It's if it's out of order, that's fine. The song is so important to the story that it doesn't matter. And I'm very glad they felt that way because I know I talked about it a bit with Austin before the show aired. That I just that song is so important to me. So the title of the episode shows that it is important as well to the show, not just the game. And we will be getting that at some point. Don't know when, don't want to really go into it for game spoilers, but we will be seeing that. So that's really cool. And that's something that I felt it put me at ease a little bit because I do feel that's actually important. And some people may say it's just a song, but to me, it is a little important. So how do you guys feel about the song? It's kind of breaking the immersion of canon of it being in a different year, but it doesn't bother me at all. Does it bother any of you?
No.
No, not at all. I mean, cordyceps technically can exist in human beings. Our body temperatures internally are too high. So ultimately, that doesn't stop me from breaking my suspension of disbelief when it comes to playing the game or watching the show. So there's a little tidbit here of a song being a decade or so off of its actual release date is not a bother to me.
Yeah, me either. I'm a huge Pearl Jam fan. One of my favorite bands. So I'll take them any way I can, and I don't care about when it was released. It's important to the game, as we all know, and it should be in it, whether it was set in 1920 or whenever. So
Facts.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And it's really funny that in the podcast, flat out, they're just like, yeah, we don't care, we're doing it. So
Yep. That was really nice to hear. I was like, oh, thank God. They agree.
Yeah, it's one of those like micro details that if you really cared like that much about, I mean, I don't know how to help you enjoy something that if you're complaining about that, I feel like that's something you're looking for something to complain about.
Agreed.
Yeah,
it's just
super
it's
fun
a
at
nitpick.
parties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those people they're the life of the party. Dr.
They are the life of the party.
Yeah. But that was, where the title of the episode comes from. And then we see the first scene is actually a recap of the end of season 1. But there's a difference because in season 1, Joel says, or Ellie first says, "Swear to me that everything you said about the Fireflies is true." Joel says, "I swear." Ellie says, "Okay." And then it cuts to black. But not here. Here, we get to see Joel's reaction, which is not good. Joel seems to know that Ellie knows, but is just leaving it be. And then they walk towards Jackson. So I thought that was a nice little change from the game. We got to see just a little bit more. I always like when they show reaction shots. So I talked about this a little bit last week, but seeing Ellie's reaction to Henry unfortunately committing suicide in season 1, that's something we don't get to see in the game. And you see that she's horrified. She's really affected by that. So to see Joel's reaction definitely added to the character, I feel. However, I have seen some people say that they don't like how the whole thing was it's cut, and then the show extends it. So I enjoy it. That is a change from the game. So how do you guys feel?
I really like kind of, how do I word this? Because that scene at the beginning of this season continues to move forward. We get the reaction shot. We get them headed towards Jackson. That gives me confidence that there are specific scenes maybe in this season where we will only see half of them now, but they filmed the rest of those scenes and we'll see the other half later. Because
That
it
was
was
a great
very
way
clear
to
that
put it.
that was filmed the same day that they filmed.
Yes, and that
in
was
season 1. So
that has also been confirmed by Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann that they filmed that when they filmed the finale. So that was really cool.
it gives me a lot of confidence moving forward with this season.
They're
That's
planning
a good
ahead.
way to put it.
which
Yeah.
is-
Exactly.
Mhm.
That's a good way to put it. And as far as like little changes like that, overall, I think they've been fairly good for the most part throughout like season 1 and in this instance as well. So I'm okay with little changes like that. It just adds to it. So
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
doesn't change anything. Like the first season still cuts there, so it's
Right.
like that's still very loyal to it. But I like that moment, like part 2 of the game and season 2 of the show is so built on that moment that I think it makes sense to kind of extend it a little bit. And it was cool. It felt kind of fan servicey in like a meaningful way.
Yeah, I think all of you guys already touched on the points, so I'll keep it brief. But it's important in the context for going forward, seeing that there's a little bit of disbelief from Ellie as she just walks away, and you can see Joel look at her and kind of just be like, "Oh shit." So it's just important that they added that. So much needed.
Agreed. So after that, the second scene is a huge departure from the game. The second scene, the audience is introduced to Abby Anderson and the Salt Lake crew. And we know they're in Salt Lake because we see the zoo from season 1. We see the giraffes. And we see a bunch of graves, and they're at the graves. And clearly mourning. And people who play the game, of course, know this character. However, this scene, while unique to the show, reveals who these people are, which is not something that is revealed until the game until much, much later. So that is a big departure. And I could see some people that not sitting right with them. I know T-Mac and I talked a little bit last night. He is not a fan. I think that it works because the difference in medium, TV show versus video game, but also because they actually revealed less than I thought they would. And we don't know, as a show-only viewer, if you put yourself in that box, all we know is that someone close to Abby has been killed by Joel. And she's clearly very upset about it. And unlike her other friends, she can't seem to let it go. And she's not willing to just move on with her life. She says, "You're going to help me find him. You're going to help me kill him. And when we do, it'll be slow." Very, very different from the rest of her friends. There's something in Abby that makes her different. So I thought that Caitlin Deaver's performance as Abby, just in a little bit we've seen of her, was excellent. I really felt it drove home that she is devoted to this singular thing. And we'll talk about this, of course, but as Phil the Bob says, in the game, Abby is jacked. She's not in the show. Caitlin Deaver is a small woman. But her being so adamant, even right there, right after the fact, showing that this is what she plans to do, this is what she needs to do, I think kind of establishes the same point of showing her buff in the game, which is that this is utter devotion and nothing else matters except this. And to me, that's the most important part about that. So how'd you all think about Abby's introduction?
It's different from in the game, without spoiling anything. which I think is important because when I first played and I first experienced the Abby segment, I was a little confused. Yeah, I was like, wait, what? But in the show, it's one of the first things that we get, and we get, like Zooboy said, we get context as to something happened to someone that was very close to Abby. She's obviously really upset about it, and she can't let it go. And we all know that Joel had something to do with it. So that just lays it out on the table right there, and I think that's important for establishing, going forward, just in the episode alone. Like at the very end, what we see with Abby. So. Yeah.
So overall, Jacob, you would say you would like that they did that?
I liked the way that they are going, especially I know that they had to change it for television and you're just going to have to change things for TV, but I think that the way they changed it fit well for TV's sake. So yeah, I think it was a thumbs up.
All right. Tyler, T-Mac, if you want to go into why you don't like it and contrast.
It's not even that I don't like it. Like we kind of talked about this yesterday, but like I feel like this is a moment where as a game player, I kind of just have to detach a little bit and just let it ride, because obviously we have a whole season. I don't want to judge it too preemptively, but it's like, for me as such a fan of the game, I think such an important part of the experience of the game is the fact that who she is revealed later, because it's so integral to like the narrative and messaging of the plot to find out later and not know it first. That for me, I don't know, it just feels like it sort of robs new viewers of an experience that we had as game players. And that's where like I'm kind of bummed out. But again, like I just feel like I need to detach a little bit and kind of just take it for what it is, because I get it. It's a TV show. Like if viewers didn't know who she was, it's different than playing a game, So people might not be as, into it, and it would take too long to reveal, So I understand it, but
it would probably not be to at least next year.
Right.
It likely wouldn't happen this season.
Yeah, and it's sort of like this is the I don't want to say consequence, but it's sort of like the product of splitting one story into two separate seasons instead of like having both seasons ready to go at the same time. Like you kind of have to make this kind of choice, but I don't know. So, someone else can go. I'm like,
yeah. I'll go a little bit. Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I do understand what you're saying though. Like it is, I do wish we could just kind of figure out later kind of how it was in the game, but it's definitely hard to do that on TV. I think if they stretched it out that long, people just wouldn't, if you've never played the game or something, viewers who didn't know just wouldn't care. Like they wouldn't want to care anymore by the time they got to figure out who she was. And it'd be kind of,
yeah,
I guess hard for them to get the story the right way if they made them wait that long. And I was watching with somebody who's never played the second game, so my dad. So for him, it allowed him to, okay, she's going to be important this season from here on out. Why does she want to? Why is this her goal? Why does she want to do this? So he's already starting to think about these things, and he has time to maybe try to piece it together himself. Which who knows if he can. So it kind of helps guide him along.
I do have something to say about that for sure, because I did watch with 3 people who have not played the game and they have their thoughts.
Yeah.
But before I get into that, did you want to say something about this specifically, Austin?
I would probably fall into the camp of not liking this scene.
Okay.
Almost pretty strongly. I can see where you guys are coming from, and maybe a lot of other people saying that it's a smart move to introduce her early like this and to establish her motivations. But I would argue that sometimes less is more with stories like this. If this character, honestly, that scene could have just been her at the grave. Doesn't need to explain that she has this vendetta. Because we got the giraffes, we know where they're at. Because of the dog tags for the fireflies, we understand that these are probably the people that were killed by Joel at the end of the first season, and that these characters are affected by it. I think maybe pull back on her explaining to the audience what she wants to do.
It's very detailed.
Yes, and then the her saying slowly, just it's kind of corny, not gonna lie, a little bit.
I do think they went a little over the top there with you, so I definitely agree with you on that.
I think her performance was solid. The tears in the eyes, the almost shaking with rage, all of that was very powerful, and she got the that part of the character just down. So I'm excited to see more of her, but I'm trying to think of like an example to kind of point back to in like another show where like they establish something but then don't come back to it for like another season, because that's just kind of how television can work. That's one of the benefits of it, I think, is being able to plant a seed, moving away from it, and then exploring it later. Whereas now I almost fear we're promising something that we'll see at this season, but it won't be elaborated until next season. So.
I have a good example. It's kind of like the season of Breaking Bad, how they keep showing like the teddy bear and stuff at the beginning, but you have no idea what it is. Like,
right.
And it's like a big reveal way later when everything kind of culminates and like goes to shit.
Sure, I can see
Yeah.
that. I
like what you said, T-Mac, where it's like this is just the first episode.
Right.
Like, you know, I don't want to be like overly critical.
I think the thing
like
the thing that I keep thinking about too, and this is more like in relation to the game, but it's like I'm such a defender of the game and the choice to say who she is later. Like I think it's so ballsy, and I just it's what I love about the game. So people that hate it, of course, criticize Neil Druckmann, criticize Naughty Dog for it, and already like there's like a whole bunch of articles that came out of Neil and Craig kind of saying why they did what they did. And there's already like a narrative of people online being like, wow, Neil just can't admit that they were wrong in the game. And it's like, no, like it just creates
I don't think that's the case at all.
It creates this bag of worms, you know. And
yes,
clearly,
people
like,
will say that, of course.
It's television, it's complicated. I'm sure there's a lot of people making these decisions, you know what I mean? So but
one thing I want to kind of piggyback off of that, the second game structure is very specific.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very intricately layered like house of cards, and it's like we're starting to slowly take this card out. It's gonna I want to be very careful, you know. Do we take this one out, we take this one out, the whole thing could come crumbling down. So it's like right now, you know, I liked this episode. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to Craig Mazin and Neil and the whole team at HBO, you know. So first episode, okay, we'll just see where this goes, but I got my eye on that card that they just moved.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. I like that because I know you have a different experience, Austin, because you're watching it with your girlfriend who does know the story of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But immediately I could tell you I'll be very vague because I don't want to say, because the show didn't say exactly. But my brother, during that scene, he said, so such and such and such, and he was absolutely right on the money. And he is someone who has not played the game, so he predicted the truth. So that's something that one could argue, if my brother was able to figure it out, maybe the show did show a little too much. On top of that, something that my dad, and I don't know if any of you guys watch reaction YouTubers or know any of them, but there's this YouTube reactor. Her name is Jessica, and her channel is Seska Says. And I've watched her react to Star Wars, you know, Doctor Who, Last of Us. And she says something very similar to what my dad says, which is, I like that they showed how Joel's actions affected people, because these people didn't do anything wrong and their lives are upended by it. And already that is planting sympathy when maybe there shouldn't be. And that is something that I'm very cautious about, because I don't think during the game that's how you should feel. However, Craig and Neil have talked about, I'm sure in the interviews that T-Mac was referring to, they have talked about how playing a character gives you an automatic empathy. And at the beginning of the game, you play as Abby for a little bit in the beginning of the game. That empathy is something that they would argue you don't get in the show. So this scene was added to show that empathy that you can't get. And I don't know if I entirely agree with that, but I understand the sentiment and the point that they want some explanation. Like I said, I'm happy that it didn't reveal too much, although I will say, T-Mac and I were talking about this last night. If I don't know, do any of you guys watch the inside of episode after the episode that plays?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of
I
them.
typically haven't. Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to say it on stream because it's not 100%, it's not said in the show, but Craig Mazin flat out said in the inside thing what happened and who it is, everything that involves the character. And I almost feel like that was a mistake.
That's why I don't like those things.
I don't mean
Yeah.
but I don't mean a mistake as in like, oh, I think he shouldn't have done that. I mean an actual editing mistake. Because if you listen in the podcast, Craig says
They don't say it.
we don't know. He's coy about it. So why would he be coy in the podcast, but then flat out say it in the inside making of? And I almost think HBO made a mistake and left that bit in. Because if you watch that, like my family did, my parents and my brother now know what happened because it was in the inside of. And that
Interesting.
Austin, you already don't like what they revealed. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I have to tell you later. But the fact that they revealed a tiny bit more in the inside making of, that's even more. That I didn't like.
That's way too much.
That's when it veered off
those
into
things because it's like they sit there and they're like, "This is how you should feel about this character. We did this season, so you should feel this way about it." And it's like, yeah, I watched the episode. I know how I feel.
I like watching those like way later once I've seen the whole season.
It's funny because my dad is absolutely exactly what you're saying, Austin. He does not like those, but my mom really does. So we do it for my mom.
Yeah.
I'm indifferent, really. Either way, I don't really feel like it's a bonus or like it doesn't add and it doesn't take away. Until this time was the first time I was like, oh man, I feel like that just robbed something away. So that is unfortunate. But like I said, I would wager it's a mistake because I based on the podcast and based on the fact the episode didn't tell you, I don't think we're supposed to know. But what can you do? Hello, Psycho. But yeah, I definitely agree with this.
Good comment.
But, obviously, like I said, show's different. So I do think something that it does add is, are you guys familiar with Alfred Hitchcock, how he talks about suspense versus surprise?
Mm-mm.
No.
So Alfred Hitchcock's whole thing is that there's a big difference between suspense and surprise. And the example that he uses is that if you are showing a scene of two people talking and you show a bomb under the table versus the bomb just explodes. Surprise, the bomb explodes, you get 15 seconds of
of
an explosion, and it surprises you, but that's it. Suspense is the entire time they're having the conversation. You see the clock, they cut back to the bomb, you see a ticker, you see that the bomb is going to go off. So you have 15 minutes of that feeling of suspense. And Hitchcock says that he prefers the suspense because it's longer as opposed to just 15 seconds of surprise, unless it's meant to be a twist. And then he prefers the quick reveal. You can make an argument as to whether who Abby is meant to be a twist. I would say probably it is, in which case it would be better for the quick thing. But I think the way that Craig and Neil are using this is in that suspense way, is that Joel, Ellie, probably the entire cast don't know who Abby is, but now the audience does. So it's jumping ahead a bit, but when we see her at the end of the episode, we know, oh, shit, instead of, who is this? So it's a different feeling of, why is this person here? Who are they here for? What are they doing? Instead, we know, oh, shit, we know exactly why she's here. What's going to happen now? So it's a different feeling, but still an intense feeling. And the difference is something that I think that we can all agree on varying levels about how we don't like that. You know, like I said, I'm mostly okay, but I can see, you know, problems arising, kind of like Austin said, that, you know, you keep pulling those cards and then the house of cards collapse. So for now, I'm okay, but we will see, because Abby is such a multifaceted character where we will see, you know, so many different levels and so many different reveals and just additions to her character that I don't want all of that to collapse, because I'm sure we could all agree, and Austin, especially based on what you're saying, if the show was told in chronological order, that I feel that would make the whole House of Cards.
You can't do it. You can't do that.
Yeah.
That's just something.
Do you think they went into this season with wanting to overcorrect a little bit here and come in earlier with
and that
with
what
at
you're
least some of
saying,
that, or
that's what I'm worried about.
do
Exactly
you
what you're
think
asking.
they were going to go the original route and then decided they didn't think it worked too well for TV? Because I wonder how they came about. Like, let's put her here and kind of get her on screen.
Because
It could be something where it's, you know, it's I think T-Mac, what's the word you used? Or it's like in their subconscious, or
'Cause
maybe
I know,
they
like,
change it. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I know that, you know, they both have talked about, like, they evaluated every single, like, scene from the game and broke it down and thought about, like, if they did it differently, you know, how would it work? Do they even want to do that at all? Do they want to change that completely to where it's a completely different outcome? So I wonder if there was a little bit of that too.
Yeah, my personal opinion is that I don't think it affected them, because I think that at the end of the day, both Craig and Neil are aware that as loud as the people who don't like this game are, generally speaking, it's critically well received. It's won countless Game of the Year awards.
Yeah.
There are many people like us who love it. It's just that group of people that don't are very, very loud. But I don't think they care. I don't think Neil
That's
is
true,
the type
yeah.
of writer, and neither is Craig, to change things based on poor reception. That just doesn't. They don't strike me as that type. Could be wrong, but that's just my opinion.
And I think also, wasn't this first episode basically just going to be mostly like show original material?
And it
So
mostly is, right?
And I have faith that they're going to not necessarily course correct, because I don't think they need to do that yet, if hopefully ever. But again, just adding that the context for television, I think it fits. That's just, kind of my last thought on that.
All right. We won't touch upon Abby again until the end of the episode, of course. Does anyone have anything else to say about Abby?
I thought it was funny when is that Owen she's talking to? And Owen like towers like 2 feet above her.
Mm-hmm.
That was just
Yeah.
something I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah.
I made my piece about her not being buff, and then that shot I went, oh my, you got me kidding me. She's tiny.
Right.
She was great. She was great. But
Caitlin
it
Deaver
was
is.
visually striking. Yeah.
It's. I'm glad you brought that up, because it leads perfectly into the next scene, actually. But like Bella Ramsey, Caitlin Deaver is a small woman, so I think it works a little bit more because Bella is so small. So if Caitlin, or they cast another actor that was huge, it would look even stranger. You know, we're seeing two parts, and they're starkly different. But Also, of course, I understand that it is important. Of course, we've talked about that last episode. We talked about it a bit here. But going into the physique of these characters,
Yeah, you want
something I really love.
the training scene.
Right. The next scene is the training scene. And we see Ellie take down a person twice her size, maybe more. And I love how she fights. That's jujitsu. And jujitsu is something that is a style of martial arts that is all about taking down someone who is larger than you. So of course it makes sense that that's what Ellie would fight with, because she knows she's small. She has to. So what can she do to still be a threat in this world? And I loved that, but I also loved that I think the character's name is Caleb. Jesse, a new character we're introduced to, tells Ellie that Caleb was told to pull his punch because he would have knocked her out. And Ellie obviously is upset about this, but it shows that she is a threat, but she also is not this, unfallible character where she just, one-man armies everything. That's just not who Ellie is. And I liked how they showed that, but also still showed that she is a threat. That was really cool to me.
Definitely. Everything you said, basically. She's getting stronger, but she's not invulnerable. Solid. I like seeing her ferocity,
Yeah.
the amped
She's
up,
smiling when she's
Yeah.
punched in the face.
a little bit of Joel in there, a little bit of bloodlust, craziness. I thought it was great seeing Jesse in that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm
Since-
jumping ahead a little bit, but
That's good. Since you brought it up, this is our first introduction to Jesse. Obviously, character from the game. I assume we love Jesse from the game. But in the show, I felt so far, I wasn't immediately latched onto him like another character that we'll talk about in a bit. But I did think he did a good job. But I'm not in love with Jesse yet.
Yeah, I thought he did. I thought he did well, especially like towards the end of the episode for sure. But I guess like the first time we see him, we're kind of just like, what the hell's going on? I like this scene a lot, but specifically because now we're like into the second game, kind of like this. We're into the version of Ellie that I love. I love this older version of Ellie where she is a badass, not like a one-man army wrecking crew video game kind of character, but like a believable person in this world that's doing whatever they can to survive is what she ends up as. So it's cool to kind of finally get a glimpse of her back into that world that I like, that we all love. So yeah, thought it was awesome. And I love how quick she was to get pissed off at pulling the punch. And like Austin said,
Don't do that again.
You can see the Joel. You can see that the Joel come out in there a little bit there. So for sure.
I love the when she taps him out and she wins, she's like, "Boom, motherfucker!"
Yeah,
Total Ellie vibe right
Yeah.
there.
Very
100%. The tattoo looked good.
yeah.
The tattoo looked good.
I'm Austin. I'm sure you have stuff to say about her tattoo.
Yeah, maybe I do. I only do them every day. Maybe weird side tangent. I am a little hypercritical of how tattoos look in media, and
makes sense, of course.
I mean, yeah.
I like that the lines on it. I mean, even in the game, they're like kind of blown out like a little bit in some areas. Like they look faded, they look healed. There's a lot of like micro things that they just got right with like the makeup design for it.
That's
that
awesome.
I just really appreciate.
You got the Austin approval there.
Yeah, for sure.
I will say it's interesting, kind of like what we talked about last week, how the show, I feel like softened Joel a little bit. And I feel like this show kind of in a different area with Ellie is doing like kind of giving her like this love of fighting, almost like this
Yes,
bloodlust
I am very glad you brought this up because that
because
was
that's
my
kind
next
of like
topic.
because that's kind of an aspect that's like unspoken in the game, really. But they kind of showed a little bit more where it's like even her fighting the guy at the beginning, and then even not to jump ahead, but later with the stalker, it's like she's into it. You know
Yes.
what I mean? So
This is something that Craig and Neil have both openly talked about for plenty of marketing last season and just interviews after the season aired. Craig's characterization, which some people don't agree with, so I'm interested to hear what you guys say because I almost kind of don't. Craig's characterization is that Ellie enjoys violence. Unlike Joel, is what Neil says. Neil says that Joel is pragmatic about violence, knows that this is what he has to do to survive, or at least in his opinion. He does what he has to do. He becomes a raider, probably from what we see in season 1. We don't really know exactly what he did to keep him and Tommy alive, but clearly, he says he's on both sides. Joel did bad things to survive, to keep his brother and him alive, because he had to.
Out of
Ellie,
yeah.
right. Ellie kind of does bad things because she likes it, which in a way kind of makes her feel psychotic, but not in a, it's obviously, that's not, the intention is not to make her feel like a psychopath, but it's just growing up in this world.
Yeah.
She has this interest in violence that seemingly other people don't have. And in season 1, we see that specifically when she's fucking with the clicker.
Yep.
Stabbing it, just messing with it. And here again, we see it. She's punched in the face. She's looking for it. She could have, in the podcast, they said that she could have other jobs, and she chooses to go on runs. And then we see that, jumping ahead just a little bit, but we also see that again when Tommy is sniping with her, and she's having a blast.
Yeah.
I just don't see Joel doing that and having a blast. Joel does what he needs to do. He doesn't find joy in it. I don't think Joel would say, "Oh my God, I just blew up that clicker's head,"
Right.
So I almost feel, this is where I would be a little critical of the show, and I would feel that it's a bit heavy-handed, and I think Craig goes a little bit more in the, again, I hesitate to use the word because it's not really true, but the psychoticness of Ellie. And I feel like it's a little too much.
I might push back on that a little bit. I almost think it is necessary because I just finished rewatching season 1 too. And all of that bloodlust and a little bit of like grabbing at violence is behind her eyes. I think it's almost necessary for where she's going to end up going in this story specifically. I think she's going to need, I after rewatching the first season, I was the one I think that brought up, I was like, oh, Joel's so soft in the first season.
Right.
I almost want to retroactively take that back. I really like Pedro's Joel now. I've warmed up to it. And I think it's almost more necessary for Ellie to be more cruel. Than
Show the
he is.
contrast.
Yes. Especially for what she has to do.
And it shows that she's kind of taken like the wrong lesson from seeing Joel's violence as well.
Exactly.
I gotta agree with both of you there. Like, I think it would be hard to kind of justify what comes. Like, if you didn't already kind of see that she kind of was enjoying what she's doing.
This is not a happy character.
Yeah.
This is a mean character.
Right.
Maybe that's a bit of like
she's
just
mean.
It's
a
interesting
product of the environment, but yeah, I think I agree with Craig a little bit and Austin and the other Tyler here.
It's a necessary, like, not to bring back the word again, Zoo, but like you said, it's a necessary kind of psychopathy that she has because you need to have that in that world to survive. Ever since Outbreak Day happened, Joel lost Sarah and it was very violent death and all that stuff. And everybody probably lost people very violently. So it's just part of their world, even going into what we'll get into in a little bit here when they're at the supermarket and, Ellie's just dying to go inside and take care of business. versus like any of the five of us, we'd probably be like, I don't really want to go on patrol duty today. I'd rather just sit on the fence and hang out.
That's one of my notes. I'm like,
Yeah, I'll
Ellie
stay
and
out of
Dina
that.
are fucking assholes. Let's go back. Let's get more people.
Yeah,
It's-
like
Right.
I don't want to follow them,
100%.
bro. There's look at that thing.
But
I'm-
Ellie's
I'm-
19. She's grown up, and
Right.
it's just another day. Oh, there's zombies over
I'm-
there. Let's take care of them.
I'm very glad that you're all disagreeing with me on this, because this is something that I spoke about with my dad after the episode, and he also disagreed with me. And he's, again, a show only watcher. He didn't play the game, and he feels that exactly how you guys feel, how it adds to her character and shows that she was growing up in this world and she has more the interest, not bloodlust, yes, bloodlust, but not like psychotic bloodlust, just that it's the interest there. And I felt kind of the way that Psycho is saying here. That's how I viewed Ellie in the games, that she did what needed to be done, but she didn't enjoy it. So it's interesting how you guys all feel differently. But I think that, it does allow for different interpretation. So that's really interesting. And this is something, Psycho, that I feel shows that Joel doesn't enjoy, because if you look in that scene, he's just trying to get information to where Ellie is. He's not taking pleasure in it. He's just doing what he feels needs to be done to get Ellie home, to make her safe. So I don't feel that it doesn't show that Joel likes violence. So it is interesting that you all think that. And again, Craig thinks that, and Neil seemingly did not correct him. In fact, Neil agreed. So I imagine you guys are probably correct. It's just not something I really got out of it when playing the game. Clearly, it's shown last season. In the show, I easily see that that's how they're choosing to portray Ellie. I didn't really get
I'm
that
actually
in the
not
game.
even saying that I agree with Craig, really. I'm just saying, like, the contrast is interesting of how,
Okay.
first season Joel they softened him a bit from the game, and then it seems like Ellie, they put more of the bloodlust in her than in the game. So in a way, I kind of agree with you. I just don't know. Like, I'm fine with it is kind of the thing, I don't really. It's just a different interpretation,
Right. I'm fine with it as well. I just feel like it's not how I characterized Ellie in the game.
I know exactly what you're saying. Like, yeah.
Maybe that's just the intent. It's just it didn't land for me, So that is interesting. But damn, Austin's gone for my favorite part.
Well, I can kind of waffle here for a second.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I do kind of feel like it's a little bit implied in the second game that she does kind of enjoy, I guess, violence to some degree. Like, I wasn't like playing the game and thinking that she was like a bloodlust, like a bloodlust monster kind of a person. But I definitely, like, as you play more of the game,
she's ready to get after it.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's not just I'm doing this because I want to make sure we survive. It's like I'm doing this because I do enjoy it and I do want to accomplish XYZ. And I don't think survival is any of the motivating factors for her. So
sure, I could totally buy that. And I will say there's something specific that I want to talk about so bad, but that's not till later this season. So that's something I'll discuss with you guys in the after show, and we can bring it up when we get to that point in the show. But that is the something. Again, I love your analogy, Austin, about the House of Cards, because I feel like that characterization. That's great,
where that
bro.
came from, but
that characterization of Ellie is something where I feel could affect something later on. And I'll definitely get into that with you guys in the after show and later on in this show that we do. But the next scene is one of my favorites because we are introduced to Dina. And there are so many words I can use to describe Dina. Charming, captivating, magnetic. She's absolutely infectious. Isabella Merced absolutely killed it as Dina. My favorite part of the episode by far is Isabella Merced as Dina. everybody who knows me that how I feel about the game knows that Dina is one of my favorite
Psycho's
characters.
spitting.
Absolutely.
Wait,
I
Zoo,
love-
did you thumbs up or thumbs down on Dina? What did you-
I got 10 thumbs up. Give me all my thumbs. I wish all my fingers were thumbs.
Lift them feet up. Lift
But,
them dogs
yeah,
up.
exactly.
What the
Yeah.
dog say?
But I obviously I'm not gonna say I like her more than the game, but honestly, I don't necessarily like her less, which is crazy because I love Pedro as Joel and I love Bella as Ellie. But I feel like, again, I don't want to say inferior because that implies that, it's a negative connotation. I just prefer the game more, even though I think they do a great job in the show. I don't necessarily know if that's the case for Dina. I just love her so much in the show. I don't know about you guys, but I think I was smiling every scene that she was in.
I got to give that one to you. Thought she was awesome.
At the moment I saw her, all of my worries went away because I'm very protective of her as a character. I wanted her to be good. I was like, oh, Isabella's killing it. She did everything I wanted the character to be and more.
Yeah, she's going to carry a lot of weight
Oh,
moving
absolutely.
forward.
100%.
And I'm glad that she was honestly just like a ray of sunshine.
Yes, and
Such
I'm
a delightful
Complete
I'm
character.
glad-
tone change with her.
I am glad you wrote that down, or you said that, Austin, because in my notes I legitimately wrote Dina is a warm ray of sunshine. So that's exactly how I feel. She is
a necessary part of this, and she
absolutely. She is too
100%
good
nailed it.
for
Yeah.
this world.
So charismatic.
Absolutely. She's the moment she walks on screen, which I don't know if you guys fell for it, but you have a little bit of a fake out there because she walks in on screen and Joel says, "Hey, kiddo." And you can think maybe she's talking to Ellie, and then or he's talking to Ellie, but there's a reveal that it's not, it's Dina. And as we've all played the game, Dina talks about her relationship with Joel a bit, but they don't really interact much. And that's something that I am loving, that the show right off the bat is starting to show you how they interact, because I don't know, I forget. I think some of you guys have watched The Walking Dead, I know. But there's characters like Glenn and Carol are on the show for like 8 seasons together, and they have like 1 or 2 scenes together. They're just there are some characters that don't interact much. So Dina and Joel just happen to be 2 characters that don't interact that much. So but we're told in the game, that they have a good relationship. Now we're seeing that, and I love how we don't just see it from how they're talking. Dina is very, open with him, talking, just flat out says what's going on with you and Ellie. It's not a relationship of authority figure and just,
well, she's Ellie's best friend, so like,
right,
if you think about it in real life, like your best friend is going to interact with.
Yes, exactly. There have been times where my friends have been over my house, my really, really close friends, and I'm like, "Where are you, bro? I've been waiting. I've been waiting for
parents.
I've been waiting for up here for 10 minutes." And my friend will text me and he'll be like, "I'm talking to your mom. I'll be up later." And I'm like, "All right, I guess I thought you were here to hang out with me, bro." But all right. Definitely. But I love that, of course. Like I love when I would hope that my friends would like my parents, because of course I love my parents and I love my friends. So of course it would make sense. So I love that it shows that dynamic. But what leads it to be an even stronger dynamic, in my opinion, is, again, jumping ahead a little bit, but in the therapy scene, Joel brings up how, complaining about Ellie and saying, not like Dina. Dina's like my kid, like what could be. And it's just, you see, just like Dina has immense respect for Joel, Joel has genuine care and affection and love for Dina. And I love that. That's something that, again, we're told in the game, but not
grow up.
Yeah,
the last 5
years,
So, and it's a very tight knit community, and I mean she's best friends with Ellie, like Dragon said, it's just natural that they would have this not parental child relationship, but like the next best thing to that, because
Yes.
she's just around for Ellie's growth.
Yeah,
and
they kind of
stuff.
just felt like pals, like
Yeah.
And it's exactly the relationship, like I said, I'd want them to
Yeah.
have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like
thought
that
it
she's
was
so
awesome.
direct with him. She cut through it, after like their little banter about the charging and stuff. She's like, why is she mad at you? Just let's get on with this. Let's talk about what we really need to talk about. And he's like, I don't know.
And she tries later on as well. I don't have that as like a separate scene because it's part of a larger scene, so I'll talk about it now. But she tries. She tells Ellie, I'm gonna watch a movie with Joel.
Yeah, right.
Maybe
Curtis
you could
and
join
Viper.
us. Yep, Curtis and Viper. And you see that Ellie doesn't take the bait, but Dina tries. And the fact that she tries is so heartwarming to me because she sees that there's a rift growing and she doesn't want that to happen. She cares about both of them clearly. And it just it brings me so much joy to see a character that I believe to be one of the most morally good characters in the Last of Us universe.
Yeah.
So that's just maybe number one.
I also love that she catches that he's in therapy when he says,
Right.
I'm not responsible for other people's
Yes.
like opinions or feelings of me.
Mm.
It also
like-
She mocks him a bit, but also
Yeah.
is like,
Yeah.
it's good.
very playful.
You need this,
yeah.
bro.
Yes. Yeah.
It also gives her more motivation for what's later to come. Whereas it's just like, I guess I wouldn't consider it a plot hole or anything, and that's not the right word. But like in the game, she's just kind of. At first, it just feels like she's just kind of there,
Mhm.
Whereas
I
in
agree.
this, it just act like, okay, that's the motivation for XYZ for her.
How I feel about Jesse in the show right now, which is I like him, but I'm not like captivated by him, is how I felt about Dina in the game initially.
Yeah.
I love Dina, but it
Right
wasn't
at the
an
beginning, you're
immediate
kinda like-
reaction.
What is this?
Right. I was like, okay, Ellie cares, but show me why I should care. And obviously the show or the game does an immense job of showing me why I should
course.
care. And I did warm up to her quickly, but it wasn't immediate like the show. And of course, I'm interested to hear from, other people who have not played the game because for sure they might have a different experience. But my dad said that to him, the best part of the episode was seeing Dina's relationship and chemistry with Ellie. So I was like, all right, a show only watcher is already feeling the love for
Oh, yeah?
Dina. So I love it.
Well, just in general, my dad was kind of, I don't know. He was like, why is Ellie being so, just like a complete tone shift from, because he's only
Right.
played the first game, so he never played the second one. So like, just the whole show, to him, she came off as like kind of like abrasive and like, kind of like a stubborn teenager, like
Which is intentional,
Well,
of
yeah,
course.
exactly. Well, hell, if that's what you want to do, let them go then, kind
Right.
of thing. So
But then, like, when she's with Dina, it's like complete.
yeah, I
That's
told him,
all.
I was like, just by the end of it, you'll go back to loving her like he
Right.
did. Just give her some time.
Harpo, it does, and we will definitely get into that because I have a lot to say about that scene for sure. But do we anyone else have anything to say specifically about Dina before we move on?
They nailed it. Like she nailed the performance. They nailed the writing of the character. It's like kind of like what you were saying, like that little conversation she had with Joel. It was something that I didn't realize I kind of wanted. Like something I would have loved to see it in the game. So it was cool to see something like that because now it's kind of just in my head canon of like, oh yeah, like they're cool. Like they know each other. They're friendly, and he cares about her, like you were saying. Really good.
Yeah, shout out to Isabella Merced. I think she's going to be playing Hawk Girl in like an upcoming
Yes.
DC movie.
Oh,
Yep, in Superman.
Yeah.
Very, very exciting.
Yeah,
She
I
was
don't
in-
know what else she's been in.
She was an Alien
Alien. She's awesome.
Romulus.
Oh,
I'm sure you
right.
guys have heard me
You're right.
say it's kind of a meme now where I say, "Hey guys, Madam Web isn't as bad as people say." The script is horrible. Villain is
I ain't
horrible.
watching that trash, bro.
Movie is horrible, but you
Try
know
your
what?
damnedest, but you're not going to get me to watch it.
No, you can't convince me, bro.
But you know what's a shining part of that movie is Isabella Merced. I love her in everything I've seen her in, and yet I was still worried for Dina because I was like, can she play this specific role? Because I'm sure you guys have seen actors that you love, but they're not great in that one role. So I already am a fan of Isabella Merced, but I was like, can she do this? Can she play Dina? And obviously she can. She's also in she played Dora the Explorer in the live action Dora movie.
He did.
And I watched that movie just because she was in it. Isabella Merced is such a great actor. And
I thought her and Pedro were really good together too.
100%.
Playing off each other too.
And speaking of Pedro, it's a good transition. In this episode, his entire performance, especially when we get into the therapy talk, it is so understated and subtle, and so many just acting with his eyes and acting with his facial expressions.
He's great, bro.
Not saying many words, just really, really cool. But in that scene specifically, something that, again, both my dad and that YouTuber that I mentioned, Seska mentioned, and I 100% agree with this. Joel right now, obviously we know Joel, it's 5 years have passed. Joel and Ellie have both, they're different people at this point. But specifically Joel feels like he is as he was in the beginning of the first show and game as well. This is Joel before Sarah died. This is, he's a valuable part of the community. He has relationships with other people. He's not grunted, fucking hate everyone. Fucking, I just want to fucking be alone. Fuck you, Tess. Like, that's not. Joel is not like that right now. Joel is actually a functional human being. Why? Because of Ellie. Because of the events of the first game. So a criticism that people have. I did talk about this a bit with my parents. Obviously, I don't go deep into it, but I say one of the criticisms that people have of the game is that Joel acts a bit different at this point in the story. As he should, in my opinion, because he went through the entire first game. Joel, at the end of the first game, and by extension, the end of season 1, is a different character to how he was in the beginning of the show. Because he's evolved. That's the whole journey has had an effect on him. And I love that we get to see the effect in this episode, because he talks to little Benji, Tommy and Maria's son. When he talks to Maria, when he does stuff in the community, and when he's talking to Dina, you see, oh, he is more settled into this safe life of Jackson. And Jackson as a whole is pretty safe. You know, when they go out to fight clickers, they're not as fearful now. It's something that they're pretty good at.
The QZ, that's for sure.
Right. They can handle it. Jackson knows what they're doing. And of course, that's what makes the Stalker encounter so dangerous, because it's something new. But up until this point, we see everyone's having a pretty good time until something happened. We don't know what, but something happened to damage Ellie and Joel's relationship, because it's pretty recent. We don't know. Obviously, we could assume it has something to do with the end of the first game and in the season 1, but that's been 5 years. So things are bubbling up now. Why now?
Right.
Obviously, that's something that will be revealed in the future.
Did your parents keep asking you what was going on, or did they?
No, luckily they didn't ask questions, because I hate that, because if they ask questions and I don't answer, it's like that's kind of an answer in itself. Yeah. So luckily they were not doing that. Something they did say, though, my dad brought up, is he didn't like seeing it, although he liked it from a writing perspective, which I'm like, excellent. That's what I love to hear. My dad did not like seeing Ellie and Joel's relationship right now, but he said he thinks it's very interesting. And I'm like, okay, good. we love Joel and Ellie. We're not supposed to like that this is happening. It's heartbreaking,
Exactly.
Right.
but it is happening, and it is interesting, and something that is a dynamic that obviously we don't see, but it shows that actions have consequences. Because the end of season 1, Joel makes the deliberate choice to lie.
One thing that I really enjoyed, the symbolism of Zach is hilarious, was at the very beginning of this scene when Joel walks into Gail's house. You see that picture, and the shot kind of lingers on it for a second. It's that cowboy who he's like, walking a horse, and there's another horse with like no rider on it. It's just kind of chilling, getting towed behind him. And I thought that was some really cool symbolism of Joel and Ellie's relationship. And of right now, Ellie's kind of like left that saddle, and Joel's kind of just there on his own. And he, lives and survives and does what he does because he cares about Ellie so much. So I just thought that was cool how they really kind of lingered on that shot. And that's just kind of what I got from that.
I like that insight, Jacob. That's pretty interesting.
Do you want to jump back to the Tommy and Ellie?
Yes, I was going to say
Okay.
Jacob
yeah.
jumped ahead a little bit with the therapy scene. We did.
Oh, sorry
we do
about that.
have that's
you're
that's
good.
fine. That's fine. We do have 2 scenes before that. We have, as Austin just brought up, we have Ellie and Tommy sniping, and you see again, like I brought up before, Ellie is enjoying this, but you see that bloodlust. But then when Tommy criticizes her for being open about her immunity, we get the fun Ellie that I'm sure we all love, where she's, I'm immune. That's so Ellie. When I saw that scene, I'm like, you are a great Ellie.
Shout out my guy
That was
Tommy.
great.
Shout out my guy.
Yeah.
Tommy was
I love
great.
Tommy.
Yes.
I'm ready to see more Tommy. He's great.
I really like
Actor's
that
great.
he's still like freaked out by her immunity.
Yes.
Like it's a little bit of the
We don't
like,
talk
I don't
about that.
want people to know, but I don't want to talk about it either. Like
Yeah.
you're weird.
Yeah.
And I love it. He's like, you and my brother are same fucking people. Just
Same fucking people.
Yeah.
Gabriel is such a great Tommy.
Yeah.
Like I've talked about last week. Tommy, I did like him more in the second game a lot, but I'm starting season 2 liking Tommy more than I did starting part 2 of the game, because in part 1, Tommy doesn't have much time. We get more time with him in the show. So it's really cool to see Tommy, I care about him. I care about Tommy in the show at this point.
That's a really good point. I think that season 1 does a little more just in the little bits that we see him to kind of make you care more about Tommy than in the game. So I like that, because I always like Tommy. And then when you play the second game, like you get a whole lot more.
Yeah.
And then you just like, oh man, I wish I had more Tommy just overall,
Right.
So I feel like the
like
show's going to add even more to it. So
Yeah, I like where this scene is placed because this is
Yes,
a
another
twist
change from the game.
on like a flashback that happens.
Yes.
yeah, I love it in the snow. It's really nice.
Yeah.
So I assume we
very
won't
quick.
get that flashback, because obviously it would be very, redundant.
repetitive.
Yeah.
Right, repetitive.
So
So
I like where it's placed,
yeah.
I think that was really smart, also to give us more Tommy before we get more Tommy.
Yeah.
More
I
Tommy,
love-
the better, bro.
Oh yeah, I love Ellie and Tommy's relationship. It just goes to show that they are family. And Ellie even goes so far as to saying, he can't tell me what to do. And Tommy's like, well, he can tell me. And
Yeah,
I thought that was hilarious.
Ellie's very stubborn, but she's also very funny in that scene. So
Yeah.
You see both sides, 3 sides really, because like I said, you see the bloodlust as well.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a brother sister kind of thing almost,
Mm-hmm.
between
It's
them.
the fun uncle,
Yeah, the fun
Yeah.
uncle. That's the
'Cause I
he
just-
is. Tommy
I
is
just
a
see
cool
shooting
myself-
zombies, hell yeah.
I see myself being the same way with like my niece, like when she grows up and hang out with her. It's like, yeah, your mom definitely tell me, and then I'm gonna do it. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna piss them off. So yeah, for sure.
Interesting, Zach. So I feel that the next scene, Joel and Maria are talking. I don't really have much to say about this scene. It's an interesting scene that's not in the game, and I like how we do see that more of what I said before about Joel, which we see in his talk with Dina, which is he is settling into life in Jackson. He has settled in, rather. He's softened up a bit, becoming more of a human being and not a husk of a person.
Is it implied in the game at all that he was doing like construction work and contract work in the city? Not really, huh?
I don't think
Don't
so.
think so, no.
For me,
So,
in
yeah.
the game, it was like he was like on retirement plan, just whittling away and making little things.
It's kind of what I thought. He was just chilling,
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
just like helping out, just like
Yeah,
you
so
know,
a lot of this is
random
more
stuff.
just to connect him to the community and everything going on.
He was
Right.
a contractor. Everybody loved contractors.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's just like more, just like I guess, yeah, to connect him. Not really much to take away outside of him talking with.
I think there was a lot of
dial.
subtext there though, because he's telling Maria that they should stop bringing people in, and I
Right.
think that's an interesting mindset to have him at the beginning of the scene. But then as it closes, she says, "You know, you were someone that we let
Mhm.
in," and I think that is an important thing to put in the back of his mind for future characters. That he
Yeah.
For
might-
sure.
I'm
agree
gonna.
with
I agree too. Just to kind of piggyback a little bit off of what Tangy was saying, there's more context to that scene. And what I noted down was I really like the scene because it shows that Joel only cares about himself and the people he loves. And that's just the way he is. That's one of the biggest flaws in his character. And that's the reason for the fateful decision that he made at the end of season 1. And that's being kind of shown again right here. Like Tangy was saying, well, the lifeboat's full, like we can't take them all in. So it's just showing that he is what I just said. So
Yeah.
does anyone think anything on that?
It definitely
I-
bleeds
yeah.
into the next scene for
Yeah.
sure. And we'll get into that when we're actually there. But
Okay.
I do think it was like, I really love the scene. I mean, I love just seeing Joel a little bit more open and happy. I like, oh, you're killing monsters. Oh,
Yeah.
that was really sweet to see. I like the rapport with Tommy as well. Oh, did you tell her about the dial, the big dial?
Mhm.
The implying that maybe that was a joke that they had even before Outbreak Day.
Right.
Just
Just
giving
adding like some more. It's at ease. It's
Character.
calm right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the next scene, of course, is one of the biggest scenes in the episode. It's the therapy scene. And I gotta say, of course, we talked about Pedro Pascal's acting. But Catherine O'Hara, amazing. She was so good.
I didn't know she was in this.
Oh, you didn't?
I had no
No.
idea.
Oh,
When she
wow,
first
that's-
popped up. I was like, Moira Rose.
Moira.
That's so cool that you didn't have that spoiled.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. I'm always so. I chomp at the bit at getting more information, but sometimes I wish that I would not be like that. I'd be, more stand up because she was announced. She was on. She had a character poster and all stuff like that. So that's cool that you did somehow remained oblivious. I love that because
Yeah,
sometimes
I don't know how. I wasn't.
Yeah,
like,
that's
trying to
great.
avoid
That's great.
anything. I don't even. I think I watched the first teaser trailer for the show, but I didn't watch like any of the press stuff or nothing. So yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't know like what was happening. I didn't know what the scene was, and then Catherine O'Hara sits down, and I was like, "Holy crap! Let's go!"
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
because she
I
was
agree
a part
with
of one of the
Harpo
big,
for sure.
she was a part of one of the big promotional things of like, what did you do? I saved
Right.
her. That was like one of the big
Huh.
promotional things.
And now this scene does have a bit of controversy because that I saved her scene was between Joel and Tommy in the game. It's actually the first scene of the game. And a lot of people love that scene, myself included. However, I'm willing to sacrifice it because we got a lot of interesting moments in the therapy scene. Now, and who knows, maybe we're not. Maybe we'll get a variation of that scene later on. They could do some twist on it. They could have a flashback. They could have right.
Yeah, I don't
anything.
think it negates getting it with Tommy later on. Like I think they could flash back to him having a similar conversation with Tommy.
Right. Yeah, Psycho. That's what we're talking about. We don't know. Maybe it replaced it. At least it's not in this episode, the Joel and Tommy
It's
scene,
worth
so we'll see.
noting too that in the game, that's what opens the game, and it's meant to be a lot more haunting the way that it's presented. It's a very cold,
Right.
scarier open than the way that it's presented here.
For sure. I was wondering the route that they were going to go, because I was like, oh, is the route just going to be that she's a terrible therapist because she's drinking and all that? But they didn't go the route. They went the route that, like Joel, like
I
Ellie,
think she's
like
the perfect therapist for Joel.
Mhm.
She said, "I am done with your shit."
Yes, exactly. Like
Not buying it.
probably everybody in Jackson or in this world
yeah.
at this time, they're traumatized by things.
Yeah.
So this is something I know that Austin has brought up before, that when I brought up that Eugene was cast, Austin said, why? Now we know there's going to be more to Eugene's story. And I love that they tease it a little bit, but we don't know, because Gail says, I understand that you had to do it, that you had killed my husband, you had to do it, but it's the way you did it. So that's very interesting, because if Joel had to do it, what does that mean? Was he infected? But if he was infected, then did he not wait till he turned? Did he just kill him as soon as he saw a bite mark or something? We don't know. So however Joel did it, is clearly in some sort of offensive manner, at least to Gail. And I would imagine probably overall. So that will be very interesting to see, because Eugene is a character who is referenced in the game, but not shown. Gail is a unique character, not referenced or shown. She is created for the show. And Catherine O'Hara does a fantastic job. I imagine what they'll do for Eugene is kind of similar to what they did for Frank in season 1, which is a character that's referenced but not shown. And I love Frank in season 1. Frank is an excellent character. So hopefully it'll be something similar to that. Don't know when we'll get it. I assume, well, of course, I would say I assume it'll be a flashback, but it has to be a flashback because Eugene's dead. So of course. But that whenever they show that should be a very interesting side story. But one of my favorite things about that scene, in addition to, of course, everything that, Catherine O'Hara, Gail is, as Austin said, calling Joel on his shit. She's sick of this. I love that you see Pedro. He's so hurt when she says, did you hurt her? He's like, no. And then she says, what did you do? And then, similar to a moment that I don't want to get into, but in the game where Joel stands by his decision, Joel stands up and he says, I saved her. Showing that despite everything that's going on, Joel does not regret what he did. Joel stands by his actions.
Yeah, I thought Pedro was just great overall in this scene. Just his acting was really good. And I didn't think, like I said it earlier, but I don't think this will replace the scene with Tommy. It might in the long run, but I don't think it necessarily.
It doesn't have to.
Yeah,
they're different.
And I think this whole scene we got through, kind of the back and forth, and her sparring with him there a little bit. It was a good addition. Like I don't think it took anything away, and I appreciate.
Oh yeah,
for
as
sure.
100% just addition. I didn't feel like there was any. I know, of course, I'm glad that Austin, you said that you've come around with on how Joel is, but I know there are people, and Austin was never this type of person anyway. But there are people who hate how Joel is, people call Joel a pussy and all sorts of stupid things. No. But I know there are people that will not like that Joel is in therapy.
No,
But
and
But
I'm
then-
immediately intrigued as to what he did to Eugene. Like just immediately,
Yeah.
that's a whole thing that I didn't even, wasn't even thinking about because of the character that he hit. Like Eugene is. It's not even so. It's cool that not only do they seem like they're going to make him a little bit bigger than what he is in the game, but there's also going to be like a little bit of mystery and intrigue with it as well.
and add something to Joel's character, hopefully.
Exactly.
As well.
And it just everything. I think everything that they changed in this episode, just in general, and added, just kind of adds to the backstory and kind of the connection that they want you to kind of have with all these different characters. So
Yeah.
Scenes like this are just a nice surprise. I think, especially not to harp on it, but for people that have played the game, because it's the second she says like that she was Gail's wife. Eugene's wife. It's like, oh wow, like because immediately like, oh, like there's more to
Eugene.
this, and it adds more to kind of remixes things that we saw in the game. So it's really really cool.
that way we don't always know what's coming.
Right,
for people
exactly.
who've played it, just gives you a little something to.
Things to look forward to that we haven't experienced.
Yeah. To those who say that Joel wouldn't go to therapy, like I get that, but Joel is there to work out his relationship. This is just what I noted, so I'm just reading. Joel's there to work out his relationship with Ellie, not so much himself. And I think that tracks because he would do anything for Ellie, so he would go to therapy for her. And I kind of like that idea of Joel going to therapy in this context. It adds a lot. It didn't take anything away, like kind of Forgotten was saying.
I also feel that is actually a problem with Joel's therapy, is that he's not really putting himself to blame at all. He's just saying,
I agree. It's
why
not
is
really him.
why is Ellie doing this
Yeah.
to me?
Yeah, it's not
But-
really his fault. Like he's not there to really work on himself. He's there
Right.
Yep.
to,
Yep.
you know.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Is
Yes, 100%.
people who have a problem with him going to therapy or taking the scene at face value. He's not really there to improve himself or grow, like Jacob was just saying, like in the last scene. Like he's just doing this for selfish reasons. He
Yeah.
just wants
Absolutely.
his relationship back with Ellie. He's not really there for any kind of growth. He says it in the scene what he's there for. He's there for validation. He wants to be told. He even asks, "Oh, what did I do in the scene with Dina? Or I didn't do anything wrong, And
Do you
the thing is, he knows what he did.
That's what I was going to ask. Do you I think we'd all probably say the same thing, but do you guys think that Joel does know, or is like, and he's just playing dumb that he doesn't know?
It's
Or do you
not
think he legitimately
playing
doesn't know?
Dumb, I don't think. I think it's just like not taking
Avoiding the
accountability
topic?
for
Yeah.
his actions.
I think the biggest issue is he didn't. I guess he didn't give her the choice, like they didn't give her the choice, and so he just doesn't want her to tell him that she didn't agree with what he did. 'Cause
Right.
then
Even though
I think it'd make him feel worse.
Right.
You know?
as Marlene says in the finale, Joel knows what Ellie would have chose.
Yeah, he's
But
just
at
kind of
this-
avoiding it, you know.
Right. So it's obviously, we recapped that whole dilemma last episode, but it just shows again that it was very important for the show to start with that scene again, because more so than even what Joel did, how Joel reacted to it and his lie is now setting Ellie and Joel on a path that is now culminating in this.
And when they continue
last
to
5 years.
they continue to reinforce, specifically like with Joel, I think since the stuff in season 1 with David, like he only cares about them, and he's only going to do what he has to do to keep them safe. He doesn't give two shits who it affects or who it hurts.
Mhm.
And they just keep hitting you over the head with it because that's just part of his character. So yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with Austin. If you thought he was just there to work on himself, you've completely missed like the context of what's going on with him.
I also like that this scene has been changed to have it with Gail, and there's baggage that he's killed her husband instead of it being with Tommy, because now Joel is coming face to face with a survivor of the consequences of something that he did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not just an echo chamber, you know.
And the interesting part, or another interesting part for me, is that this therapy scene is something that Craig has talked about. He wrote for season 1 that Joel was going to do this in the in Boston, and he said it just didn't fit in. They wanted to get to Ellie. They didn't want to add more stuff in Boston. They just wanted to, because Ellie's the main character. You can't add too much before you get to Ellie. And he said it just fits so much better here because, like Austin just said, you get the weight of Joel's actions in multiple different ways that you wouldn't have if it was the beginning of season 1, because that would have been the first episode. So it's a whole season later. Everything that Joel did.
Yeah, I'm glad that wasn't in the first episode, because
I
that would be a
Me
very
too.
awkward way of first meeting this character.
Right, exactly. And on top of that, it's a similar thing to, like you said at the beginning, Austin, that the opening scene of this show, this episode, was filmed prior.
Mm-hmm.
Craig has said that he was deciding which version. Him and Neil were going back and forth, talking to other people, seeing whether they wanted the end of season 1 to okay and cut to black or do the extended version. So they chose to stick to the game version, but then it allowed them another opportunity to do it. So I like that the show does that, where if something doesn't work out entirely, based on narrative reasons, usually it makes sense. And there is something later on when we get to another scene, which for budget reasons, I was listening to Neil talk about this, was not in the game and then was added to the show. So that's really cool. And we'll talk about that for sure.
Yeah.
But I wanted to say 2 things. One, hello, Emiliano. Nice to see you.
What's up?
But then also, Harpo, I wrote this down as well. I love when Joel stands up that Gail flinches just a bit, because Joel his expression changes.
She knows he's violent. Yeah.
Right. Joel changes in that moment.
Very quick. He shows us in this episode. He is
Yes.
the violence.
Right.
Yep.
100%. And when we get to that, it's even more dramatic than in the game, just to show again the contrast of Joel. But yeah, that was just, again, it's a little thing like that, the little flinch. It's not, that's something maybe some people wouldn't even notice. But that little thing just shows, okay, this is who Joel is. And it just, like I said, adds a little bit of characterization.
Yep.
But unless anyone else has anything else to say about the therapy scene, we can go on to the supermarket with the stalker.
Do you want to skip straight there, or do you want to touch on Ellie and Dina in the garage?
Well, yes, that whole I put that
Okay.
whole scene
Okay.
together for sure. But
We got a workbench scene.
Yes,
Yes.
that's the whole reason I want to talk
Hey,
about it. Was
You
Yeah.
got 2 game mechanics in this.
upgraded.
Yes,
episode.
right,
Yeah.
of course.
I-
Yeah.
She's like using the glue. She's like
dude.
so
One
good.
of my favorite parts of the game is just
Oh,
the sound design for that
And the-
fucking
Yep,
great scene.
100%.
The journal.
Yeah. Also, appreciate you, Bobcat. Thank you. Love the algorithm.
Thanks, Bobcat.
But yeah, that was really cool. And as Dr. Forgon said, we're about to see some more game mechanics. But that was really fun to see. As soon as I saw that, I was like a little chuckle to myself
Yeah.
that's what that was. And
Little
then
treat for us real fans.
I know what that is.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Oh, that Leonardo DiCaprio meme that happened a bunch of times this episode. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, exactly. But in addition to that, like I said, it's before we see that Dina again showing her kindness, and she's just trying to repair the relationship with Joel and Ellie the only way she knows how. And obviously it doesn't work, but she tries. And then we're introduced to Kat, which is a character in the game who we see through Ellie's journal, but we actually physically see. So another character that is given actual screen time that is not in the game. And this character, I like how Dina is like, oh, she's the other one. showing
Really,
that
really subtle.
right, Ellie, that's kind of, it just shows you Jackson's small. It must suck, right? If you're the only, and maybe not necessarily gay, but at least the only lesbian in this community, by default, they're gonna say, "Oh, you pair you off," and obviously, we see there's some tension there.
Yeah,
so there's
out in Wyoming.
Right. There's some problem there. But you even see in that moment that, which obviously we'll see when we get to the dance later on, but Ellie she doesn't even put it in her mind. Her and Dina can't possibly be a thing. It's just, It's not there. It's just, why would something happen to her that she would enjoy? Her life isn't like that. So I love, Dina, again, little joke in there. She's saying, you can go with me. And establishes that she broke up with Jesse.
Really
because the first time we see
Cat left her mark.
Yes, that was great too.
Yeah.
And I was gonna tell my parents what that meant, but they didn't go into it. So I'm like, okay, maybe they'll go into it later. But so we won't talk about that. But that was cool. That was a little reference, of course, that we know. But there are just, they look up to Ellie for some reason. That's what Jesse says, right? He says they look up to you for some fucking reason. Why? I don't know. The interesting part to me is that they are clearly, especially Ellie, but Dina too, they view this in a different way than how they should. And later on, when we get to the following scene after this, kind of so does Joel and Tommy. They also fall victim. Again, showing how Ellie and Joel are very similar. But there are a set of rules in this community for runs for a reason. And
That's
Ellie...
one of my notes is, I'd hate to go on patrol with Ellie.
Yes, of course. And Ellie does not follow the rules. And the thing is, obviously, we see what happens, and we'll get into that in a minute. But Ellie goes on patrol, and she fails. Because, again, jumping ahead a bit, but the stalker bites her. If Ellie's anyone else, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the stalker wins in that scenario. And that's a problem because Ellie should not have done that. Clearly, it puts her at risk. She would have died if she wasn't already immune, and it puts Dina at risk. But she has that thrill. She has that want. She wants to be able to prove that she can protect herself. And she also has, as we said, that thrill and excitement of killing the infected. But before we get into the actual fight with the stalker, she enters the grocery store, the supermarket. And we see the dog employee of the month. That was really fun.
A great Easter egg.
Yes, that was fun for fans of the
Didn't
game.
even look for any safes, bro.
Right.
Yeah, look pretty safe.
Yep. And then we get the bottle scene, of course, in the game. For people who don't know, a big way to
like
distract
the,
clickers.
Retro Bud Light.
Right.
Too.
Yeah.
I
There's
know whatever prop master made that was so proud of that.
He was like, look at the work I've done.
Yep.
right.
Picked up the bottle. I was like,
Yeah. In the game, you could use a brick or a bottle. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was like a little brick moment in the first season. I seem to remember that. Unless so that was cool. They, HBO is they're bottle people confirmed. I'm brick myself.
me too.
But that was fun. And even when she takes down that clicker, how she does it is very reminiscent of how Ellie kills someone in part 1, a clicker. She's, not like tough guy Joel just strangles them out.
Switchblade.
But she's just like constant like stabbing with the switchblade. So that was pretty fun. Again, just all little moments that are happy for, or it's nice to see for us fans of the game.
I really like Dina and Ellie trying to give each other like silent commands.
Yes, that was
to one
great.
another, but
Yeah.
it's clearly like fucking nonsense.
Yeah.
Ellie needs to be careful with that fucking knife. Girl was stabbing herself in the
Yeah, that's like me on stream with Mr. Coffee.
It's like, bro, you're not immune from a knife wound to the throat, bro. Calm down.
Yeah, you can
Right.
be bit and be okay, but you get stabbed in the neck, you're done for.
Right.
I
One-
like
And-
that interaction real quick was I like that Dina was like over it when Ellie would kept like going. She's like, okay.
Yeah.
She like rolls her eyes. She's like, let's focus up here.
Right.
One thing I liked about this scene was before they go out on patrol and they're late cut to meet up for the meeting, and Jesse's like, Ellie out here looking like Curtis and Viper, and Ellie's like, the
The
fuck?
callback.
What are
Yeah,
you talking about?
Yeah.
that was
That's
great.
all. That was hilarious.
I like how it was brought up twice.
Well, then you get to her writing in the journal, not to fuck this up.
Yeah.
Just
Yes.
showing you
And I love
exactly
that, showing
what they're trying to convey. So.
it's again, we'll talk way more about it when we get into the dance scene. I'm sure we'll talk for ages about the dance scene, but just again, you feel for Ellie, or at least I do in that moment, because I'm like, man, I am sure most of us probably know this feeling of you have feelings for someone and you don't know if they feel it too. And
Yeah.
I've also felt the experience both ways, where I've told the person and they didn't feel the same way, and I've told the person they did feel the same way, and then it's such a human thing, that's such a human thing, and it really humanizes Ellie when we see her in these dark moments, but then we see her in these silly, funny moments where she screams, "I'm immune," where she's acting out that scene with Dina, like Austin just said, and then we see these more just emotional moments, and you feel bad because at this point I'm in love with Dina already. So I want Ellie and Dina to be together, because I just, even as friends, their chemistry is impeccable by this point, and just
Right.
I'm already sold before the dance even happens. I'm already sold on their chemistry. I gotta say, amazing props to Isabella and Bella. Their chemistry is off the charts.
I want to say too, quick aside, I thought it was cool in her little garage room. I thought it was cool they had the Nirvana posters all over.
Yes,
and then-
it's so, again, we
And-
didn't, it's
and
just
Love
Easter egg.
Buzz,
Someone-
Love
yeah.
Buzz by Nirvana was playing like in the scene, and even not to jump ahead, but the scene later when Joel goes in there, you see like the In Utero vinyl like in the corner. So
Right.
cool
And
that
we
they're
see,
sprinkling the little like Seattle grunge, like
we know
Yep.
Neil is a big fan of the grunge. So am I. I love that's one of my favorite genres of music. And I love not just all the grunge stuff there, but you see Savage Starlight comics, and you see
Yes.
Yep.
just all of this. It's
I love
Ellie's
seeing
room.
physical versions of those comics. It's
Right.
cool. I wish like they would just make those.
Oh, I'd
Or
be
come
so
with,
in.
like a special copy of the game or something.
Yeah.
Oh, I
That'd be really
would
cool.
love every time, because I actually have a couple versions now of the American Dream Ellie comics, because they keep coming with things. I'm like, these are cool. I like them, but I wish you would do like a mock Savage Starlight. That'd just be a cool thing to physically have. That'd be awesome. But
I really
Anyway.
liked the bear and
yes,
the
Oh, yeah.
it was
exterior
it
setting
was
of
a
the grocery
grisly
store.
scene.
It was
All
what
right,
do you
I'm out.
call grizzly ribs,
Yeah,
barbecue.
yeah, barbecue.
Great.
Again,
great
love the
dad joke.
puns. Love
Great,
the
great
Dean
dad
is
joke.
in on the puns. Just
Yeah.
returning from last season. That's awesome.
But it was such a
Hell yeah, Stone.
faithful recreation
What's up, Stone?
of like that moment in the game where you're like going up on the patrol and you get to like the grocery store. There was, the bodies and stuff laying out.
Mhm.
So I was really satisfied with how that all looked. Now I feel like I can say it. I think I said it in the pre-show. The structure for this episode is very interesting because it's everything is like a prologue,
Yes.
like to the
'Cause-
game, but like this scene and
Is in the game,
Tommy-
just in a different place. Yeah.
right.
Right.
And that's kind of why I'm excusing the Abby scene at the very beginning, because like these changes I think work better for the structure overall. and the
Absolutely.
It's like things plucked and then dropped in. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's cool.
Because this
Spliced with like I hate to say made up stuff, but
right.
show original content.
Yes, and because the game starts, besides that intro scene that we talked about with Joel and Tommy, when Jesse knocks on her door, Ellie's door, and is like, "Ready?" And he talks about what happened the night before at the dance. We don't see the dance till much later in the game, but we see it happen now. And I think the structure for that, because it's not the integral structure that we five have talked so much about, it makes sense to move up. And the one thing I was a little bit nervous about was by the point that it's shown in the game, Dina's one of my favorite characters in gaming. So I already love her. I was like, will my family feel that love at this point? Will other people who are show only watchers be that attached to Dina at this point? And from what I've seen, I don't think it was as intense, but yeah, they pulled it off for sure. Because again, I keep saying these words, but again, Isabella is magnetic. She's just, it's you're drawn to her. She does such a fantastic job. I'm so happy, but I've done enough simping and glazing. But anyway, we go back to the grocery store and we see that Ellie, again, like I mentioned before, with Jackson as a whole and Joel in the community, they feel safe. It's just a clicker. It's fine. But this time it's not. It's not just a clicker. It's something different. So we are introduced to stalkers. I'm sure all of you guys have played the game. Stalkers are a bitch. We hate them.
Hate them.
They are the worst.
Stalkers are a pain in the ass.
I'll take a bloater any day.
Yeah,
when that stalker was acting exactly how a stalker does in the game, my mom was like outwardly like, my mom's like, what the hell is it doing? This is so creepy. Yeah. I'm like, if you played the game, Mom, this is
there's daylight in this room.
Yeah,
the out of focus in the background kind of just darting across, dude. I another Leonardo DiCaprio moment where I pointed, I went, oh no!
My dad was like, "The hell was that? A cat?" And I was like,
"Oh my god,
no!"
That is crazy that you said that, Tyler, because my mom said the same thing. Said, "Is that a cat?"
And then you just kind of like she's walking the shelves and you see it out of focus again.
I thought it was a cat. I think the first time we saw something move, and then when it's like between the aisles, when I was like, "Oh, that's a stalker."
Yeah, it's like,
and I can't imitate it, of course, but I just love the sounds that it makes. It's like it's like
that was good.
Like a clicker sounds, just so not human. And obviously, clicker is further along the infected cycle, and a runner sounds very close to a human, just crazy and whatever. But stalker is like that middle thing where it's like you hear the clicker, but then you hear the humanity a bit, and it's scary because
moaning almost
moaning exactly.
Mm-hmm. You get that face reveal, and
yes, when you see the stalker, you're just like, oh my god, what a. First of all, I gotta give props to the makeup department and everyone because it looked fantastic.
What did you think about the fucking tendril growing out of it?
Yes,
as it zooms in, and I was
creepy.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and I like how because they could have went a few different ways, right? They could have just said this is the first time that we, the audience, are seeing a stalker, which is what I thought they were gonna do, but no, they did. This is the first time that Ellie or even anyone in Jackson that to their knowledge has seen a stalker. And I didn't expect that. That was a really interesting route. That they didn't know what to expect. The stalker, it stalks, it plans, it thinks.
I hope it's not a one-off. Like I hope we see another. Like we don't need to see 45 of them, but I do hope we see another.
I think we will. I think we will because there is. I don't remember where it was. It might have been in the podcast, but Craig said something like, and I'm sure we'll never see stalkers again. So it was like a joke.
Yeah,
like,
he did say
okay. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we will. But I did enjoy seeing that dynamic of Ellie's so cocky. She can handle this.
Charges at it,
And then, I love she's in the beginning, she's starting to get uneasy. She's like, run at me. She doesn't know how to handle this. She knows how to handle clickers. Does not know how to handle this. And as I said earlier, if it wasn't Ellie, if it was anyone else, she would have died because she's bitten. And this is now the third time that Ellie has been bitten in the show, which in the game, by this point, she's only bitten once. So, which happens before.
It's like Mandalorian stormtroopers can't hit anyone, but in that show they always hit his best car. And no one else
Right.
will get bit, but Ellie's just getting bit all the time.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And is that something that bothered you guys that she's bit
No.
now thrice?
Nah.
Especially
No.
because of the scene that follows.
Yes.
I don't know if we want to jump ahead or come back to it.
Yeah,
but
we'll come back to that, but because I
Okay.
definitely want to talk about that. But well,
Psycho,
we
no.
can. What?
I was just answering Psycho's question. Does Dina see her get bitten?
Okay.
No, she doesn't.
Yes, Dina is not there, and she covers it up quickly. And unless you guys have anything to say specifically about the fight, I'll go on to the council scene.
Yeah, I loved how just it goes to show, well, also to kind of lead up to this, outside of the grocery store, we see that not in for those of you who don't know, in the game, it's a moose that's dead instead of a bear.
Mm-hmm.
I think it does a really good job of context showing that, hey, the clickers and the infected overall in general are really scary and really powerful to the fact that they can take down a bear. I mean, it's a bear. Come on, there's I don't need to say anything else.
Right, and
then-
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. And then we get to the scene with the stalker, and it's at first, like everybody said, you just see it dart across the back, and then they did such a good job with the lighting and just the whole scene in general. You see
Yeah.
it crawling in between the like the aisles and stuff, and then you see it crawling in the glass, and you're just like, this thing is a monster, and it's not reacting to stepping in glass, and it's just, like you said, really intelligent, and it's just freaking awesome. The whole fight scene was like how they did the anti-jump scares. They did it like twice, where they go and there's nothing there. It's like,
Mhm.
what the F? So
It's almost like something out of like an exorcism movie, or kind of like The Ring, like the way it's like crawling at you.
Yes, I know, and that's
Like
that's
what
what gives me.
Super
I don't like
yeah,
the ring.
Yeah.
Alfred
Really-
Hitchcock suspension.
Yeah.
They set it up.
Right,
Ellie doesn't know what's happening, but we do. And
exactly.
it just keeps
100%.
popping up. Oh,
And
there it
it's-
is. There it is. There it is.
Just
And it's
the
cool because in the game, like you can't use listen mode to even you
Mhm.
can't see them anyway. So it kind of the whole her looking for it, she can't see it. It kind of harkens to just that mechanic in the game of not being able to see them either.
very unlike
That's true.
clickers.
A quick
Don't
shout out
always make a
to before they even go in, they like kind of listen to see if how many they
Yep.
can kind of hear in there. Quick
Yeah.
shout
Yeah, they're
out
like
to that.
they're
you
like
know.
crouched behind, like
Yeah.
1, 2. Yeah, that's damn. They actually went prone or whatever.
Yeah.
I liked that you could
That was
see the reflection in the stalker's eyes at the end of the aisle. There was like a little glimmer in the eyes, kind of like cat eyes. That kind of like
Ooh.
animalistic.
Oh, I didn't notice
eye.
that. Okay, cool.
Maybe it was something with my TV, but I swear, like it had that sort of like creepy fox at nighttime, raccoon at nighttime, animal like double
That's
lids.
awesome.
Or whatever.
I have to go check that out.
Yeah, I just loved everything about like this whole. I mean, this is the first time anybody who's never played sees a stalker, so it just, I think it delivered. More infected, the better. Love seeing them, and then for something as crazy and as scary as these are in the game, because fuck fighting them in the game, they're like the fucking smoker things from the Left 4 Dead. Like you fucking hate them when you see 'em.
Yeah.
So
It
yeah, I
does-
think they did a great job for sure.
It does make me wonder if, I don't want to spoil, but there is another infected type that's introduced in part 2, because stalkers are in part 1, they're just not in season 1. So I wonder if this infected type that's introduced in part 2 will be shown in this season, or maybe next season.
Bring
Maybe
on
they'll
all
save
of
that
them.
for next season, but that is, I wonder if like they'll only introduce one new infected type per season. So we'll see.
yeah, interesting.
But it was really fun to see, especially because again, this is going forward into next season, but there is a very fun scene with a stalker next season. What would be next season? That I'm
Oh,
glad they
yeah.
introduced stalkers now for that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that will be very cool. But yeah, so we're done with that. I think it was, we saw a lot of action. That was like the meat of the episode. In what I mean is in that was like from the moment that Ellie and Dina left Ellie's house all the way up until the dance. It's just following Ellie this whole time, as opposed to the rest of the episode, just switching back to Joel, see what he's doing, Ellie, even Abby in the beginning. But this whole extended sequence is all Ellie, in chronological order. So the next part of that scene, or the next scene, I guess, would be the council. And I thought that was pretty interesting because we don't see anything like that in the game. But I was very interested to see that Joel is not on the council, which kind of makes sense. How I view Joel, he wouldn't be. I was trying to notice if I could recognize anybody else, but I couldn't. It just looked like Maria and Tommy to me. But there are a few things about that council scene that I love. The first thing is Dina's lying, and you can easily tell she's lying, but she's so quick to lie.
She's got Ellie's back.
She's got
Ride or
Ellie's
die.
back.
Ride or die.
And I love that Maria picks up on it because she's like, oh yeah, exactly like Ellie said, 100%. It's like you could tell that that's not true, but I just love how the as Austin just said, she just has Ellie's back, and
I
then
like that did a lot of world building.
yes,
Jackson.
for sure, because they're confused, and also you see that this council makes decisions, right? In the game, we don't really know. Is it Maria who makes the decisions? To Maria and Tommy, but now we see it's a full council, which is cool. I'd assume Maria and Tommy, are still the leaders because they're sitting at the front, but it's more of a committee approach, which I think makes sense because of how as Joel says in season 1, it's communism, and kind of it does make sense. But I do also like how Ellie says, "You're telling me if Tommy, you and Joel went, it would be different, and or you wouldn't do the same thing." And Tommy's like, "It would be different." And then you just see Maria, and she's like, "How?" And Maria's right because it's not because
I love that.
Tommy
He's just
and
like,
Joel, right? Yeah, Tommy's like, "I'm not getting into this." Tommy's like, wifey saw the boys in brown. I can't.
Yeah. All right, you got me on that one.
But I love that scene because Maria's absolutely right in this scenario because like Ellie, like even Dina, Tommy and Joel absolutely would break the rules and not follow
100%.
protocol. 100%.
Yep.
So, and again, the point of the rules, the point of the run, and Jesse makes that very clear when he talks about it, is that if you don't follow the rules, people die. This is how we keep what we have, what we need, what we love safe.
It's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of a thing that they really set up. It's like, yeah, they put themselves in danger and anybody else would have died, but then they also wouldn't have learned about this new type of infection,
Right.
which
That's a good point.
could cause them issues further, in different runs. Now they're at least know we need to kind of pay attention that there might be one out there who is a little smarter and trying to do some trickeration on us or whatever. So,
and we'll also get into that, of course, when we talk about the final scene, because that's also a damned if you do, a damned if you don't part. But I just like Austin said, it's just a world building, and we get to see more of Jackson, and that was something that I felt season 1 did very well. Because in part 1, we don't go into Jackson. We go into, what is it, the water treatment facility?
Hydroelectric dam.
Yes, right. The dam, exactly. And we don't go into Jackson. So Jackson was developed into an actual community in season 1, and now we're just seeing even more of that we didn't see in season 2. And I like Jackson in part 2, but now we're getting even more lore, more world building. So that's very cool. Do you guys have anything more to say about the council?
I've never been a big fan of I have a bad feeling about this kind of tropes and stuff.
Sure, yeah.
And so Maria's lying about the horde, and I just have a bad feeling. But that might just be like a specifically me thing.
No, I see what you mean. For sure.
It's very video. It's always been very video gamey to me. It's like, like when somebody says that, it's like, okay.
Like the writing is so good during the therapy scene, and then we have one of the most cliched lines.
Yeah.
Later in the same episode. It's just kind of wild to me.
Yeah.
I do like that it. Sorry, you go.
I was just gonna say it's interesting too that like so many years have passed obviously since the outbreak happened, and they're so surprised to hear like, oh, there's an infected, like it's like they're getting smarter. Like that whole angle is really interesting. Just because it's been so long, you would have thought at some point one of
Shows
them
how
would have
naive
maybe
they are, kind of.
yeah, and like you
Right.
would think at some point maybe one of them could have run into something like this, but it's just like it's uncharted territory kind of.
That's also something I know that Justin has talked about a bit, because he has said that the infected in The Last of Us are dangerous. And he likes how this episode specifically shows that they're dangerous. And the example he used, which is pretty funny, is that in Walking Dead, he doesn't see how walkers are a threat. He said, just run. And
100%.
I
I
think
mean,
that's
it's
funny.
like that until like later seasons, like till almost the end of the show.
Right.
You're always just like, these are not a real threat unless there's like 1,000 of them. There is no threat here.
Yeah. And
not to defend like the worst show maybe ever, but the zombies in that they move in hordes,
right. Yes, of course.
Like
It's
that's
mass
the issue
numbers.
with them is just there's just the numbers.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the last thing before we get to my favorite scene of the episode, and I think probably a lot of ours, is Joel visits Ellie in her room.
The mutilation scene.
Yes,
Right
you're right.
after
This is
the
technically right. Yes. So before Joel is in her room, Ellie is in her room alone, and you see that obviously she doesn't tell anybody about her bite. She cuts herself to make it seem like it's a normal cut and not a bite. And to me, that scene was showing that this is something that she's not involving anybody else with. She's just like, I can handle it, which, very Ellie for what we've seen in the whole episode so far. Ellie is trying to be that I can handle it person. Maybe Ellie at the end of, or, 5 years ago, Ellie, maybe she would have told Joel. But at this point, her relationship with Joel is just not the same. She's like, no, it's me. She hides it. And I like how it shows that she is able to do what is necessary, but showing a strength, but also the weakness of not being able to ask for help. Because I feel like that is something that a lot of people struggle with, even in real life. Just, it's okay to ask for help. But at this point, there's not many people in Jackson that Ellie probably fully trusts.
Or maybe he was told just not to trust,
Right?
And
As
that
well.
was one of the big points of the first season and game is just like, we don't tell people, do not
Mhm.
tell.
And that's that
Yeah.
scene with Tommy where he's flipping out. You don't tell people about your
He
meeting.
knows
they-
and he's
they
still,
live there and-
uncomfortable with it.
Yeah. They
The thing
don't
is, too,
fully trust everybody.
It could even kind of slightly imply, like, maybe 5 years ago at some point, maybe Tommy and Joel even sat her down and it's like, if you ever were to get bit again, you'd have to kind of cover it up just in case anyone in passing saw it and is like, what the fuck is that? You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely. That's one of my little notes. It retroactively explains her arm a little bit too.
Mhm.
For sure. And I'm sure the show will get into that more. Obviously, we know from the game. So that's interesting. And obviously, you said, touched on a little bit with Kat leaving her mark.
Yep.
But then Joel enters her room. And we see that, again, she's very standoffish. She was just writing in her
Yeah,
diary.
this is what
and-
she's writing in the journal.
Yes,
Yeah.
as you
I
said
got it
before,
mixed up, yeah.
Tyler. That's fine. But just we see that she's, she doesn't want to fuck this up with Dina. And then Joel comes in, doesn't mention anything. Of course, why would she? But we see that Joel's relationship with her, again, is just on the rocks. It's not how we want it to be as fans. We just love them. And this is clearly the dynamic has changed. And then Joel sees the guitar. And the guitar is dusty and the strings are broken. And you just see that clearly it hasn't been played in a while and it's not taken care of. And I love the scene where it just it shows Joel's face and you could tell he's just deflated. and he's like, man, I can't believe that this is it. But Joel does what he does, and he takes the guitar and he says, I'll handle it. Despite Ellie's protest, I got this. And it's a very Joel thing, but again, shows in a little bit, Joel is doing not really what is best for Ellie, but what he thinks he needs to do for Ellie. And it's putting them even more at odds than they already are. So, do you guys have anything to say about that?
Yeah, he's looking for the quick fix.
Yes, for sure.
I can fix the guitar. That'll mend something. He's not like actually willing to engage with her. When he comes in, he flips on the light, says, "Is that better?" And she goes very quickly, "No." But he doesn't, like, as simple as just turning the light back off. He's not really willing to listen to her. And he hyperfixates on tangible things, that exterior problems that he can fix, and not kind of like in the therapy scene, open the valve of his emotional problems.
Yeah. I think the tension, you can feel the tension really well too. Like, even if you are just a show only viewer, you're kind of still trying to figure it out, whereas the rest of us already know. But walking in there, it's kind of like, I don't know, like he just got into a fight with like your parents or your partner or something, and then they like come in, and it's still just that awkward kind of tension kind of thing. So I thought they did a good job there. And then, he sees the guitar, and it's something easy. He can take his mind off and fix it, but it's also like a nice way to symbolize where the two of them are. So, because the guitar kind of being broken and weathered and dusty kind of represents them too. So, yeah, that was good.
And they show the moth, right, on the guitar.
Yes.
Don't they,
Yep.
do a zoom in
It kind
on
of
that?
zooms in on it. Yeah. And he asked about it. Didn't he ask about the moth or something in the therapy, or am I making that up?
Yeah. Then
I think that was in like the after show
was.
thing.
It was like the next time on.
Yeah.
There was a little short clip of the moth getting brought up. I don't remember the context, but it was in.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I must have got
Yes.
that.
It was like on the not next time on, but like this season on.
Oh, this
weeks
season.
ahead.
Yeah. I think you guys all said it very well. And I don't think I can add anything new to that. So great job.
All right.
Yeah. The thing is, there's just
sorry.
Pedro says a lot by saying so little, which is very core
Yes.
to.
Like I said, the
character.
subtlety of his performance.
It's very core to the character of the way Joel is portrayed by Troy Baker in the game. Like, he nails it in his own way of. It's a lot of expression and not really saying a lot, but how he feels, and this carries over into the next scene.
Right. So this next scene, for me, is the scene I was most worried about, because I had seen it in the trailer, and I knew they were going to show it in season 2. And if we followed the game structure, it would be season 3. So I was a little nervous about it, but I was like, okay. The E3 trailer for The Last of Us is the first time that most people who played the game on release seen the announcement of Last of Us 2. They show the announcement with Ellie and Dina on the dance floor. So people saw that scene before they cared about Dina. So I figure maybe that's the angle that some people might get. It's that, gamers saw this first, so we're showing show viewers first. And it fits, because, like I said, I was nervous, not just about the structure, but also because of Dina. But, we talked about it a bunch, how good she is. So I thought it was a very nice choice. It was the right choice, in my opinion, to make it as close to the game as they possibly could.
It was perfect.
There were a few times that were slightly off, but it was like it captured the spirit so well. Even the opening shot, like when they're, I don't know if any of you guys have played the remaster, where they added deleted scenes. There's like an option in the menu to play deleted scenes. They're not in the game; they're just a separate thing. One of the things is you go outside of the party and you see kids playing with snowballs and stuff like that. And we see that in the show. Just that was really cool. But you hear Crooked Still's Little Sadie, and as the kids are throwing snowballs, and I'm like, oh man, they're using the song. I love it. And then it cuts to that shot that Austin used in the thumbnail for this episode. And as soon as it pans down, it's not exact, but it is very close to the game show.
Yeah.
It is damn near perfect, like Austin says. And seeing that, I was like, oh man, I could already tell this scene is going to be exactly what I want it to be. And like the show frequently does, where they mirror certain scenes as if like it's an alternate universe. Where in the game, if Joel is on the right and Ellie's on the left, they'll flip it. They did the same thing for the dance scene for different parts of it. But you do have a slight change in dialogue. Like one of the things where Ellie says, I'll give you guys 2 weeks till you're back together. And Jesse says, did she say something about me? And Ellie says, make it 1 week. That's not in the show. Instead, Ellie says, or Jesse says, not going to happen like he does in the game. And Ellie says, why? And we don't get an answer because then Dina shows up. So I that's an interesting dynamic shift, because the way I took it is that it's because Jesse knows that Dina is interested in Ellie.
Yeah, he just kind of.
That's how I took it. Anyway.
He kind of looks at her a little bit before.
Right.
And also at this point, like in the show, they had already went on the patrol, and he kind of saw them interacting at the gate. Whereas like in the game, when they go out, it's after the dance.
Yes, exactly. So you already, it's building there. 100%.
It makes sense that Jesse would think like, oh, there's something there.
Right, exactly. And before we even get to the whole actual meat of the scene, I just wanted to say that I love how, again, Crooked Still, the band from the game, is there. But this was the thing I talked about earlier, how Neil Druckmann has talked about. He wanted to have Crooked Still play themselves in the game. Unfortunately, he said it's a lot of money to animate each individual person in the background. So he said they just ran out of money and time for that scene. So it was just a record player in the game. In the show, we do see Crooked Still, and they the band that they are played in universe is called, I wrote it down, it's called Brittany and the Jug Boys. That was a funny name.
Yeah.
And we have the composer of The Last of Us.
Yeah,
part
Gus.
1 and 2.
Shout out.
We have Gustavo Santaolalla playing I don't even remember what he was playing, but he's part of the band.
I think, right?
Okay. It's part of he's part of the band, and that was just great to see. As soon as they cut to him, I was like, there's Gustavo. They did the same thing in season 1. Gustavo's just playing an instrument, sitting to the side. They cut to him.
He has a cameo in the second game too.
Yes, as well. He does. Yes. And that's just really cool. I like seeing him because he's one of my favorite composers of all time. I love his music, not just in Last of Us, but just in so many other things. But Last of Us particularly, The Path, A New Beginning, which is the song that plays when Ellie says okay, and then the credits. That's probably my favorite piece of instrumental music ever. I love that so much. You guys know Spotify Wrapped, where they tell you every year what the most played song. For the last 5 years, that's been my most played song. So it just keeps going. But I love that song so much, and I love Gustavo. And specifically for this scene, Crooked Still's 2 songs, Little Sadie, and then when Dina and Ellie are dancing, Ecstasy. Those songs I feel are so important, and music is important. We'll see that going forward with Future Days and another song that I'm sure will be in this game. Or the season, sorry. But music is important in the world of The Last of Us. Music is important in real life. If you guys ever have talked about music with people who have a deep appreciation of it, it's always fascinating to me to see how much someone can get from a piece of art like music. So I felt that these songs were necessary for the scene. And of course, Craig and Neil agreed because they put the songs exactly as they are in the game. So that was one of my favorite parts of the dance scene. But of course, then we get to the meat of the dance. And we see Ellie and Dina go into the center of the dance floor and plays out exactly like the game. And performed so well by Bella Ramsey and Isabella Merced. We see Ellie just distraught that Dina will never see her the way she needs to be seen by Dina. But Dina does. And the moment of realization on Ellie's face is so beautiful to me because it's like she's in such a bad place right now and she finally gets some happiness. And that's so sweet to me to see that. And I love, in contrast, how Ellie is so, not confident. Dina is super confident. Dina's, of course, she's, as she says, she's high, but she is just 100%, dancing. She's rubbing up on Ellie with her stank. And I love the contrast between Dina and Ellie, as they showed previously in the episode, and as we'll see going forward. Dina and Ellie are very different people, but they work so well together. And we'll get into what happens, after they kiss, but I don't want to get into that right now. So their whole leading up to the kiss and the kiss, I just thought was perfect. Exactly as I wanted it. Every little small, tiny detail was perfect. So how do you guys feel about the dancing?
I thought it was perfect. It's like probably one of my favorite scenes in the game, if not my favorite.
100%.
It's like the set design, the way that it's framed, the way that it's shot, the back shot of Ellie just kind of standing back, and then Jesse walking up, and he's like, she's putting on quite the show. It's just like,
yes,
I don't know. It's like the delivery of the way that they're talking, and like obviously like I don't know. Dina's just so fun in the scene. Like it's such a vibe to what like the good times of The Last of Us are, but also there's still kind of this underlying of like not everyone is so happy, but it's like everyone trying to kind of make the best. Like no one, like Ellie doesn't really want to be there. Jesse doesn't even really want to be there, but it's a community thing. So everyone's there, and it's just, I don't know. It's great. I love it so much. I was so happy with the way that it was in the show.
Agreed.
I think what was really cool, because I listened also, Zooey, like you did, to the HBO podcast of The Last of Us recap. And I can't remember who it was specifically, but Craig Mazin said that at one point it just didn't feel quite right. And I think he let somebody know. So like one of the cinematographer literally took the camera off of the crane and like held it onto her shoulder and just shot it. And I just think it makes that scene even better.
She did a great job.
Absolutely. So yeah, just killed it, and probably one of the like, it's just such a wholesome moment. Probably one of the most wholesome moments of the game, and probably of the at least this season for sure.
I mean, yeah, like not to glaze too hard, but it's like when I think of like greatest scenes and moments in PlayStation games, it's like that's a scene that I always think of.
Oh, you could remove PlayStation for that for me, just in gaming
games.
It's definitely one of the most integral scenes, I think, to the entire series for sure. Yeah. So to see them do it the way they did it, and it turned out so, perfect. I don't think there was anything that I thought they didn't do perfectly. I thought everything from the opening and all of it. So, and it was exactly what it needed to be, and I was happy, and I had the biggest, dumbest smile on my face as soon as it opened onto the scene, and I just like
that
I knew
opening shot panning down.
My dad is experiencing this scene for the first time, and it felt like because when he played the first game, I sat and watched it with him and to help him if he needed it. So it felt like to me, yeah, he was like playing the second game in this
Right.
specific part, and we're watching the cutscene together. It's kind of what it felt like to me.
It's what makes me have such faith in Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann. Obviously, Neil, he made the game, so of course. But Craig Mazin really, to me, for the most part, obviously we've talked about some changes that we don't like for both seasons, but for the most part, from what I've experienced so far, Craig really understands when it's okay to go away from the game and when you got to really reel it in and do exactly. Because something like Bill and Frank, great, go far away from the game. That's a huge departure, but it's so well done. And then you get to the dance scene, and it's almost exactly. And even the parts that aren't exact, it works. So obviously, Austin, now that you're back, I definitely want to hear your whole thoughts on the dance. But before you go, I want to touch on something that T-Max said, which is the line delivery. And it is slightly different from the game, of course, because you don't have Craig and Neil there with a YouTube video of the game saying, do this.
I'm okay with less one-to-one
right.
line. I'm
yes,
okay
it's the
with
same. It's the same line, but different. And I just love, in the game, a line that sticks out to me is when Dina says, maybe they're staring at you, and she says it like that. And then in the show, Dina says, maybe they're staring at you. And it's just that different in way that she says it. And in the show, they make a point to show Dina is so close to Ellie, touching her cheek, just whispering into her ear. That's so well done. And then they do change a slight line, but it didn't bother me. Ellie, in the game, she says, I'm just a girl, not a threat. And in the show, she says, I actually don't remember the first part of the line, but do you guys know? I should have wrote it down.
I think she just said, I'm just not a threat.
Yeah, I thought it was just I'm not a threat. I don't know why I'm not a threat or something like that.
She says one other thing. This is bad. This is bad prep work. I'm sorry. I should have written that down specifically, but she says something.
You finally fumbled. I think.
Yeah, there you go. Fucking her. But she should have said, I should have written down what she said, but she says something else, and then she says, not a threat. She doesn't say I'm just a girl. But then it accomplishes the same thing. And then we see Dina takes a step back, brushes her hair, and says, oh, Ellie, I think they should be terrified of you. And that line is so important to me. It's like top 5 important line to me in the whole series. And I thought Isabella Merced nailed it. So that was great. I do think, which this might be a product of it being only 7 episodes with things to go, everything in the show so far, it feels slightly sped up. And what I mean by that is Ellie, they're kissing, and then Ellie is able to take a step back, and then Seth comes in. Not in the show. In the show, they're mid-kiss, and Seth says something. And then we'll go into Seth a bit, because I want to talk definitely about that whole part. But before we get into that, I want to hear what your thoughts are, Austin, on the dance scene up until Seth. We're not talking about Seth, just up until the kiss.
I just quickly pulled up Max. Dina says, maybe they're jealous of you. And then Ellie says, there's no reason to be.
There's no reason,
I'm
right.
Not a threat.
Not a threat. There you go. There's no reason. There you go. That's the line.
It's like the smallest change, but
right. And it's fine.
Still, yeah, I just pulled up YouTube on my phone. I agree with all of you guys that it was just a perfect recreation. The scene is just so, that was the first thing that we got to see, of the game before it came out. And I just remember being so kind of blown away by it, just from a graphic standpoint. I was like, oh my gosh, this looks incredible. And the dialogue and the little bit we got to see of Joel in it and the contingency between the two characters. And I think it was really important for them to not stray away from that scene because it does so much to set up everything moving forward. And yeah, like you guys, I really was just so pleased that they didn't change it. Obviously, other than like micro.
Yeah,
Micro,
tiny little. Which
yeah.
again, it does make me again. I don't think they need to be a slave to the dialogue, but it does. Part of me does wonder why the change, since it doesn't really, it doesn't subtract, it doesn't add. What's the change for? So I would be interested if Neil and Craig ever talked about, because they did the same thing with some iconic scenes in the game in season 1, where it's almost the same line, and I wonder what that almost is.
Maybe it was
it's
like
just
an actor choice.
that's what I was
you
going
know?
to say. Maybe it's
More
the actor.
natural or
They
Yeah.
felt
something.
the dialogue was a little bit more natural. You
Yeah,
know?
and that's cool. I'm cool with that as well. So
Because
whatever it is, it works.
Like they're changing like it wasn't like Jesse dancing with her or something. you
Yeah,
know?
oh my God.
It was still it's still conveying the same.
Yeah,
themes
and
and
we
messages.
speaking of that, when you were gone, I don't know if you were in earshot, but Dr. Forgon said that I love when Jesse says she's putting on quite a show. That
Yeah.
line I love in the game, and it just you
Yep.
see that she is. Dina is
She
not
is,
Ellie.
yeah.
She is just not Ellie, and I love how you really see in this scene how different they are, but why they work so well together. And
Yeah,
that's
she clearly grew up in Jackson,
right.
and
Yes.
Ellie clearly grew up in the what's it, the QZ or whatever.
For sure.
Yeah, that's I know it's a kind of a short answer, but yeah, no, I loved it. It was a perfect recreation.
Right. I'm glad that
chose the picture for the thumbnail. Like
yeah,
I did.
of course. It was as soon as when you were told me you were making the thumbnail, and I saw that you like the minimalist style, and then I saw it was the dance. I'm like, yes, it has to be. That's just,
I was
Yeah.
like giddy watching that scene. Like I was like in my chair and I kind of was like looked for like sat up a little bit like
Yep.
I if obviously we're all watching the show, so no one's looking at me, but I guarantee you if my parents or my brother were over to look at me, they'd be like, are you okay? You just keep fucking smiling, bro. So I was just like, no, it's just, to me, that was just, I'm not gonna lie, I probably watch that scene once a month on YouTube. Just I love it. I love everything about it. It's just so good. So yeah, Psycho for sure. Austin, you know what? I'm gonna leave now. So
Moving to the Austin YouTube channel, huh?
Yeah, the Tangy Fungus show.
yeah, there we go. Well, at least it's not the Tangy Fungus Instagram. So
Yeah.
no. If anybody doesn't know, Austin does great work on his Instagram. You should follow him.
Thank you.
Yeah. Rebel Scum Photography. But
I appreciate it.
for sure. But the next scene, of course, or the continuation of the scene, we get Seth. And it's done a little differently in the game. And I think how this is done, though, it almost makes me angrier. How it is, because it's the callousness, I think, of the way Seth says it. And in the game, Seth says this is a family event. And the same thing, I was wondering if they were going to do Dina saying sorry. And they do exactly that. And then Seth says, remember next time there's kids around. And Dina says, oh, yes, you're setting such a great example. And that was replaced with, this is a church. And I thought that was interesting. That adds a religious element to it. Kind of making sense, probably where Seth has some of his bigoted beliefs. And then just like I said, the callousness. And, he calls them loudmouths in the game. And then in the show, he doesn't do that. It's just the slur. Just flat out, just says it. And in the game, I do like, again, this is where I'm talking about with a little bit of a speeding it up. In the game, there's a pause. They're like they're a little stunned at what he says.
Kind of let you sit with it for a second.
Ellie spins around and says, "The fuck did you just say?" And Dina, like Ellie, does the same thing in the show, except Ellie, she it's instant. it's Seth says what he says, and then it just spins right around, and the fuck did you just say? And in the game, which I love so much because it shows what just a great person Dina is for Ellie specifically. Dina, I'm sure she's taken aback by what Seth just said, but in that moment, she doesn't care. What she cares is making sure that Ellie doesn't flip out, because she knows Ellie. She's been her best friend for 5 years.
Yeah, if Joel hadn't got there first, Ellie was going to get up.
Yeah.
Yes, Ellie was going to flip out. And I love seeing Dina in the game and in the show is like Ellie, she just cares about Ellie so much in that moment. And then Joel comes in, and my mom was like, oh my God. And in the show or in the game, he just pushes Seth, and Seth likes, get your hands off me. In the game, in the show, I keep saying the wrong thing, my bad. In the show, Joel pushes Seth to the ground. And Seth is on the floor, and I was
Go
like,
to Joel
man.
moment.
Yeah, and Joel again. There's got to be a reason why they speed it up, but I think that part specifically, it lends itself to oh God, because specifically very quickly Joel's like, get the hell out of here immediately, and you have Maria take Seth away, and I love seeing how. Harpo. I love seeing Seth just put in his place, but also you see while Joel is trying to do a good thing here, you could frame it in many different ways, right? Is Joel doing it because his parental instinct just pushes, he can't help himself, he's got to protect Ellie? Is he doing it because he thinks it's what Ellie would want him to do, and he's taken aback by that? But either way, whatever reason that Joel's doing it, you see Ellie did not want him to do that, and she's humiliated. And you look at Ellie, and more so than even the game. In the game, Ellie says, Joel says he had no right, and Ellie says, and you do? And that exchange was taken away from the show. And Ellie says, I don't need your fucking help, Joel. And that's obviously, when I watched it, I was like, oh man, that sucks. And you see on Joel's face, he's so hurt by it, but he says, right, and he walks away. In the show, the way Ellie says it, she says, I don't need your fucking help. And you just see the vitriol. She is so there's so much disgust there. She's so upset with Joel. And it just hurts because that fuck Seth, right? In that moment,
right.
everyone just fuck Seth, of course.
Yeah.
So we're all cheering on Joel.
I do not feel bad for him.
No.
Right.
Fuck that dude.
Should have pushed him a little harder, I think.
Yeah, honestly. Dude, there's literally the world is
Oh no, he
coming
broke
to
his
an
hip.
end. Who cares if a woman is kissing a woman? Get over yourself, man.
Right, exactly. But at the same time, you understand Ellie's point that, again, as we've shown, we talked about this like half a dozen times this episode, Ellie wants to take care of herself. She's tired of being a damsel in distress. And she never really has been, but she's always been young. She's tired of Joel and Tommy and everyone else, Jesse, looking out for her. She wants to take care of herself. Right, the Fireflies. Yeah. So she could handle it herself. So she thinks. And then you just see, again, like in the game, Joel's just heartbroken and he just walks away. So I'm sure you guys have a lot to say about Seth. So
I think them changing it to making him like shove him completely down to the ground and then getting that reaction out of Ellie, it makes a lot more sense to like further drive home the wedge between them. I like it being a little more aggressive. In the game, he just kind of shoves him and they get right and all that. So, but yeah, I think it works better here in my opinion, because when she tells him that she doesn't want his fucking help, like you said, she's so angry and disgusted. Like
Bella's line delivery,
almost like so she's not disgusted at Seth for saying it. She's disgusted at Joel for, defending her when she wanted to. So I think it just all lends to it even more to further drive home like the thing that Joel did that makes her so angry at him. it's got her to a point where it's like doesn't want to be around him, doesn't give a fuck about him. You know, it's really trying to drive home that point, and I think it accomplishes that better in the show than it does in the game. And it is heartbreaking for Joel because it's like,
right,
you know, I would do the same thing, and if I got yelled at like that by the person that I was trying to stick up for, I'd be like, oh.
It's his reaction in both the game and the show, just like the right, and he just walks off. It's like
it's heartbreaking.
He's broken.
It makes me so fucking sad every time I watch it. I tear up. The game, the show, like it's I don't know. Both Pedro and Troy Baker, just those performances in that moment, just so good.
And it's like Phil the Bob saying, we get it, of course. I imagine most people watching it understand, but it still sucks. And that's a huge part of this story, which is we understand and we get it, but it sucks.
Yeah.
And
it's just heartbreaking to look at, to see.
Right.
You know?
It's very similar to, again, why I said the whole story, like part 1, part 2, season 1, season 2. I imagine most people who have people in their life that they care about, if in Joel's shoes, would probably save their loved one. I mean, it's probably the moral decision to not save Ellie. But if that's my sister, if it's my daughter, if it's my mom, my brother, my dad,
and you got to save them. I mean, you're going to save them.
You know, so that's just, we get it. We totally understand. But at the same time, it doesn't make it hurt any less.
Mm-hmm. And I like. I just like the faster nature and the more, I guess, aggressive nature from everybody involved.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it worked really well.
Totally get that, Harpo.
But this is where my dad was really upset with Ellie. He was like, you know, like, I can't believe, which, you know, is the reaction that they want you to have, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's really they're really emotionally steering my father in the direction that they need him to go.
Right.
And this is like where he's like, all right, get her out of here.
Something that I just thought about too, like where this scene is placed in the show. In the show, you don't really know why. I mean, you have assumptions if you're a first-time viewer, but you don't know specifically why their relationship is so broken at this point. But in the game, when the scene is presented, you do know why. So it's kind of like the inverse of what we were talking about before, where like the way that things are kind of changed around and the context and your understanding kind of switches.
For sure.
Exactly, Phil.
Austin, Jacob, do you guys want to talk about Seth specifically? Or the scene with Seth?
I just thought it was in the game, which they're not going to get to this probably. Well, they might actually. So maybe it's a spoiler, and I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll refrain from saying.
Okay, probably a good idea.
Yeah, you never know. It could be small. It's probably not big, but I just don't want to say anything. So, Austin.
I mean, try to remember what you're saying. I want to ask you in the after show what you're talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's up.
Kind of just going off of the dance as well. Because for my notes, I had like all of this grouped together as just one scene, and honestly, my biggest takeaway was just still great recreation. The minor changes, but I don't have like a whole bunch to say because it was just one of those moments of like seeing something that was previously animated, lack of a better term, come to life. So yeah, I was just happy. I mean, happy in the context of seeing something that I love treated so preciously.
Nah, Austin was just rooting for Seth. Austin was like, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's totally.
Yeah, big Seth guy.
Yeah. I hear he makes killer sandwiches.
Yeah, 100%. Can't wait for that.
But no, I think most of my points are for things that follow this scene, but nothing more to really add to this one. It was just solid. Bella was really fantastic in it.
Yes.
The malice in her voice
It kind
That's a
of
great word, Malice. For sure.
Very excited for her to start going to those darker places.
I think
That's what I was going to say. I know we had some. We were cautiously optimistic, I guess, about some of the more emotional scenes for her this year and these next couple seasons, and I felt like this was one of them, and she really delivered on the emotional aspect that we needed.
Yeah, I may not love her. Sorry, I may not love her character in Game of Thrones, but like her performance was really good in that show.
I can agree with that.
That character did have a lot of anger in her, so I've never really had those doubts, and we've gotten little glimpses here and there, like when she's, what's his name, the cannibal guy,
David.
David, yeah, like when she kills David, like I'm there for that bloodlust, you know.
Or breaks his finger as well. Love that.
Yeah,
scene.
yeah, definitely.
It gives me hope for future moments. So
for sure. And I'm glad to hear you say that, Austin, because I've been interested to hear specifically what you had to say. Because I know when we were talking about season 1, you were saying that when the show copied the game, you felt it was just the same but worse. So you weren't a big fan when it was identical like that.
Maybe a little harsh, but yes. There, I had my criticisms on like emotional. I think rage and
absolutely
anger are a different feeling than like, I don't even know what kind of emotion that final scene would be. Confusion, maybe anger, sadness, betrayal. Like there's a lot of complicated feelings for someone who's younger to realistically process and maybe pretend to process. And that was my kind of criticism with that final scene of the last season was, I don't know if she or Bella, they could maybe translate that as well as it was in the game, because what's the actress's that name? I'm blanking on names right now for Ellie in the game.
Ashley Johnson.
Ashley Johnson. She, was in her 30s.
Yes.
She played that character, so she could tap into that, whereas Bella can't. But not to say rage is a simpler feeling, but it's like it's a cleaner emotion to convey than everything that Ellie was feeling in that last moment. So I am excited and ready to see her in this season, because I think that rage is going to be something that they're going to be able to easily like convey.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that, because I obviously, again, anyone watching who knows Austin knows he's not like this anyway. But before I say, I have to reiterate, knowing him personally is absolutely not like the people I'm about to talk about. But I've seen so much stuff online about people just saying Bella is horrible. They want someone else's Ellie.
So much negative rhetoric around.
Right.
It's
okay to be wrong.
It's okay to be wrong.
You can have a wrong opinion.
It also, if you want to criticize her acting, fine, I'll disagree. But then it starts to get into weird things where people start criticizing her looks and say she looks like a doll. I've seen really disgusting things. People say, Down syndrome actor, or people say that.
Oh yeah, that's so fucking nasty. And
yes,
I just don't get it. I don't get how people like get raised a certain way.
Yeah, I was going to say you brought up a great point.
Where they can 100%. Talk about, where they think that they can talk about people like that, like it's absurd.
It really is just keyboard warrior, like eat bullshit.
It's quite simply just like get the fuck over yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
it's also Justin and I were talking about this a bit. When the people start talking about, how she's not attractive in season 1, I'm like, Ellie's supposed to be 14, bro.
Yeah, what are you trying to say?
That's a self-report. I don't know.
You might want to check yourself and relax a little bit.
Yeah,
it's not supposed to be a fucking thirst trap. She's fucking a teenager, dude.
It's nasty, and I don't want to harp on it too much because, again, that's not even legitimate criticism. It's just I don't even like talking about that because
all that rhetoric is like I'm ready for all those people to eat their fucking words over the course of the season and the next. Like I'm so excited for their performance. this season because I
Shout out,
just the
Psycho.
little glimpses through.
I wish they would just quit watching. To be honest with you,
Yeah, you know what? That would
fuck off.
honestly solve.
you don't get to enjoy this. Like
That's
the
my
rest
thing.
of
It's
us.
like, why-
If you don't have a valid criticism, like a real criticism that's constructive, fuck off. You don't get to enjoy this. Go fucking do something else.
Dr. Forgon spitting. Yeah. All right, I think we're done with the dance scene, and again, want to reiterate that is just fantastic scene in the game, fantastic scene in the show, my favorite part of the episode. But then we get to the ending, and the ending's broken up into a couple of different things. So if there's anything else that you guys want to talk about in part of the ending, we could talk about that. But the two things I want to talk about specifically are we see Joel on the porch. And I do not want to go into this too much, but there is a very important scene in the game that involves Joel on the porch. And when they showed that, I was almost, it wouldn't have like made the episode horrible, but it would have taken me all the love that I felt with the dance scene. Right. It would have pulled that out even more. And I would have left the episode with a more sour feeling than I did, which obviously I didn't at all. I love the episode.
Yeah, I would have
But-
definitely hyper focused.
Yes, that scene has to happen later on. It can't happen now. And I like how there's a fake out because Ellie goes up and then she walks by Joel. And I imagine what they're going to do is Ellie is going to come back and then they'll have that scene. And I don't want to talk about that scene, of course. But I'm very happy that they did not show what that scene is.
And again, it's
That was
a little
really
that's a
nice.
little treat to the people that have played the games because it's a little like
a treat for us real
ah?
fans.
It's a fake out, you know.
Right.
They want people to kind of clench up in that moment and then realize, oh, thank goodness.
Yes, because again, that's what we were talking
It's
about
another
before.
integral
Where,
scene. So we
Right.
need to make sure it happens in the right.
yes, Craig and Neil, they change things up, but then when it needs to stay the same, it stays the same, and that's what Austin was talking about earlier when it was like the something where they probably filmed it already, you know.
Yeah.
And yes, 100% agree with Psycho. You cannot do that for sure. Joshua, I love to hear it. Sometimes it gets a little overwhelming because I saw it mainly on Reddit, and Justin told me he was scrolling Twitter. Which, Justin, that's your first mistake. But
yeah, that's a cesspool.
See, and
Yeah.
I've seen it on Twitter and Facebook.
it doesn't matter where you go. There's just these people who just hate Bella so much. But
Hey, Bill.
I appreciate that, Dill.
What's up?
But yeah, I really enjoyed that little fake out. It's like the "Hey Kiddo" fake out earlier in the episode.
Right.
But then the last thing I want to talk about, and then you guys could talk about any other part of the ending if you want. But the last thing I want to talk about is we see the pipe, and we see again. This is a consequence of actions of, I think, Austin, you brought it up where you were saying how it's like a good thing, but then it leads to a bad thing earlier. You know what I'm talking about? You said that earlier with something. I can't remember exactly what you were talking about. But
I don't remember specifically, but I also really liked, just as like kind of a callback to, because they set it up in the first season, the hive mind kind of thing with the cordyceps and the infected. Because I feel like after the first episode, maybe the second episode, they didn't really do anything with the kind of roots or the spread of,
Right. It's just that like first arc.
Yeah. So I
Tendrils.
like that tendril. Yeah. I like that they brought that back. Just as like a connective tissue to
Yeah.
kind of the way the world works.
Especially because, obviously in the game, there's other ways that the infection is, spread, and that will, the fungus, and that will come into the story later on. But I liked how they would not have disturbed this tendril, and therefore the coming horde as we see at the end, if they just didn't expand Jackson. So it's like human beings like how that's what you were saying when you were saying Joel, he was a refugee, and he would have let people in, and then they do eventually. Yeah,
Tastes like
exactly. There you go. But I love that it's necessary to expand to let people in, but at the same time, now this is what's happening. So you have that threat, and that's looming. And if that's not enough, then we see the reveal at the end, which is Abby and her friends have arrived in Jackson. They have somehow tracked Joel down. So we now have
double consequences.
We now have problems with the infected, and we have problems with Abby.
And see, I think I would have preferred just that ending scene with Abby. Maybe that's just because it's so much closer to the game. Because that's kind of.
I will say I am excited to see this horde. Like it seems like they've been building it up for a while, just like in the promotion and stuff. So I'm excited to see it because it's not something that you really get.
Right. That is it's something I wanted to talk about.
So I'm interested to see how they're going to do it.
Obviously, I don't want to go into too much because we'll talk about that more obviously when we see it next week.
Yeah, 100%.
But it's as we talked about, other than the dance scene and the supermarket scene, mostly everything else in this episode was show original, with a couple things taken out from other parts of the game. So the next episode, just from what we know, based on the ending of this episode, is that we'll see conflict with the Horde and conflict with Abby. And the Horde is something that did not happen in the game. And that, I imagine, there's been plenty of stuff going around, I don't know if you guys have seen, saying that episode 2 is Game of Thrones level budget. So I imagine that has a lot to do with the Horde. They say there's crazy shit happens in this episode. So many action scenes, brutal. So I imagine that we're going to see a big departure from the show or from the game in the show. And then likely, I would guess, going forward, meaning like half of episode 2 and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, most of that will probably be all game stuff then. Of course, because you got to get into the meat of the game.
Yeah.
So it's like they had the first episode, which was mainly show stuff. Now, like, part of this second episode will be show stuff, and then we're going to get into the meat of the game. So it is interesting to see what I imagine, based on all these reviews and promotional material, is going to be a huge set piece. That's going to be a lot of fun to see. But also, it's kind of showing how this episode, even with the turmoil it had, is the calm before the storm. Mm-hmm. We get to see the nice dance. We get to see Joel is relaxed in Jackson. We get to see Ellie is relaxed in Jackson for the most part. And now there's two very big, crazy forces that are closing in on Jackson. So next episode is going to be crazy. But if you guys have anything to say about the ending, go ahead.
Yeah, I like the closing shot of the tendrils sneaking out and Abby, and kind of setting the stage for what's to come. Something we know and something we don't. As people who've played the game, I think it's going to be fun. I'm excited for the episode, and I think it was a good way to end. As somebody, when they first announced this, season 2, you had your own ideas of where they were going to do things and how they were going to do things. So, long time ago, I thought about where I want episode 1 to end, and completely nowhere near what we got, which is perfectly fine.
I'm interested to hear in the after show what you wanted.
Yeah, I'll tell you how I think it should have been, like how I wanted it to be done originally, and that was before we even saw an episode of season 1.
Yeah, they're doing like show stuff.
Yeah, I'm like, they're doing shows when we get to the game too, So, but yeah, I think it's a great tease for what's coming. A great tease for like the episodes to follow and all that, and I'm excited, and thought it was a good close to a pretty damn good open episode. Like, couldn't have asked for a better way to end my Sunday night.
Oh, yeah.
Very well said.
Were you gonna say something? Jake?
Not really. I was trying to find something to mention, but I think Foregone nailed it, and it just set up perfectly. I'm just ready for Sunday already, and it's only
I know.
Tuesday, so
Can't wait.
yeah, man, it's gonna be. I just have such faith after watching this first episode. I
That's how
loved
I
it
feel.
again. Give it 2 thumbs up at the beginning of the show. So I'm glad you feel the same way, Zooey. And just seeing that last shot of Abby, I was like, ho ho ho, here we
Oh,
go.
that
Like
was
they
so
found
good,
Jackson
man.
Hole. Like,
That was so good.
yeah.
And again,
man.
it's like that suspense versus
Yeah.
surprise that I
Yeah.
talked about earlier, which is the surprise would be who is she, why is she here, what is she, what was she planning to do?
exactly. That's
And suspense is we know why she's here.
kind of why I
It's
think
scary.
like I know
Yeah.
we. It would be, I guess, in a perfect world, maybe they don't have that at the beginning of the episode, and we kind of get like stick super close to the game. But also, I think it like helps the ending here because we kind of know
Yeah.
what they want to do and like what So
It's a different flavor.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a different way to kind of get us emotionally where we need to be.
They set the stage, and it does kind of feel like that. You know how like the second to last episode of every season of Game of Thrones, it felt like a penultimate kind of like shit was
Yeah.
about to pop off. It's like
Yeah.
it kind of feels like that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Facts.
Did you want to say anything, Austin, before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I'm excited for the rest of the season. I thought the episode ended really strong. It's good start to the season. I think you said there wasn't a horde in the game. Am I misremember? I swear there was a ton of infected at the beginning.
Yes, I guess what I should say is the horde in the game doesn't attack Jackson.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
That's the horde. The horde. There is a horde. It just
right. It just
technically
doesn't
we don't
attack
actually know because maybe I'm just assuming here. Maybe the horde doesn't attack Jackson in the show, but based on what we've seen with the tendrils coming straight from the middle of
Mhm.
Jackson, it seems like they're going to
Implied.
attack Jackson. So we will
Maybe
see.
that's the maybe it's the zombie Walking Dead lover in me that just wants a horde.
Yeah,
Just-
man.
To just wreak havoc, but like I'm excited to see.
Yeah.
To see
Yes,
it.
Psycho's with you. I should have clarified because that's what I meant, that the horde didn't attack Jackson.
I think what would have kind of been cool was if at the end of the episode we reconnect with the Seattle crew, and they're maybe like lost a little bit, like they don't know where they're going, and we see like in Jackson the tendrils start activating, and the horde is what pushes them towards the town.
Okay.
I think that would have been an interesting
Ooh, yeah.
maybe recontextualization of the way the game plays out, but that's just me just kind of thinking a little bit about it. But no, I loved it. I'm excited to see what comes next. Solid start, but I think that's it. What I got to say.
For
Nice.
sure. I think what you were saying, Jacob, in that it definitely puts me at ease because I'm sure we're all huge fans of the second game. We're very protective of this story. So obviously the first episode was a lot of original stuff, but the original stuff I thought was very well done. And then when they did do game stuff, I don't feel like there was a miss besides maybe one or two things which jury's still out. I wouldn't call them misses right now. We'll see what happens. So overall, I don't like rating things because it doesn't mean anything to me. But
You give it a heart.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I give it a heart on Letterboxd for sure. When Letterboxd adds TV shows, I know they said they plan to do that.
It's taking them so long. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's gonna be
yeah. I'm ready to
definite heart
log Severance in there. There's my.
I'm ready to give Seinfeld 10 out of 5 stars. Favorite show of all time.
Yeah.
Got to give
10
that one to
popcorn
Foregone.
bags out of 5 stars.
Joshua, I don't know if you were talking about this show or The Last of Us, but either
I think he's
way,
talking about
agreed.
it, yeah. Yeah.
Our it's nice that we help out HBO because
Yeah,
promoting
Such a
this
small
because-
network like HBO.
Yeah, I'm glad that we could help promote them because I know everybody just comes to watch us because our show is just so good. So HBO, I'll be waiting for the check so I can split it amongst us 5.
I heard on the next podcast that they do after the show, Troy Baker's gonna promote this at the end.
Yeah,
So if so,
That's
you want to hear
what's
even more.
yeah,
I think Pedro
Check out the app
owes
of
us a cut, of that
yeah.
contract he got for this.
I'm gonna hit up Troy. We'll see. We'll see. We can work something out. But yeah,
Another great hosting job by the esteemed
Thank you.
boy. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I did mess up with that stupid
That's
Ellie
you, boy.
line at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, boys. Thank you, boys. Jacob was on the money. Jacob said it would be about the same amount of time. We
Oh,
were
wow.
3 hours last time. We're about 3 hours now.
I
So
think it's going to be about 3 hours almost every time.
yeah, 3
Yeah.
hours. 3
If
hours.
things
each
go
week.
the way that we know that they go, I think it'd be about the same.
I'm very interested to see because with next week being an action heavy episode, I wonder if we'll have less to say
Yeah.
or maybe more. I don't know. We'll see.
True.
But you guys will find out next week. Next
True.
Tuesday, same time, same place. We will be yapping about The Last of Us, the 5 of us. So thank you all for watching. Thank all 4 of you for doing this, of course.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, man. Totally.
Got my Switchblade shirt on.
Hey.
I don't have any Last of Us merch like that, but that's close enough, right?
Absolutely.
And Psycho is spitting.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Thank
Got to
you.
give
Luke.
that one to Lucy.
I am so glad that you and Justin and Zach and his wife you're enjoying the show because this is something that is so important to me. So to see my friends who haven't played the game just really enjoy it, that just warms my heart. I love it.
And that's one of the best things about this show.
Yes,
it
of course.
shows the story to a whole new set of people.
Hell yeah, Phil. We've talked about this on the show before, but just we love finding other people who love the show. So it's and the game, just the whole franchise.
Yeah.
We would not be doing this about anything. The show means something, the franchise means something, the game, of course, means everything. So had a lot of fun talking with you boys.
Yeah,
And
likewise.
we will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye, chat.
Later.